Welcome, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is October 12th, 2023. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham ZBA is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410. Then you punch in the conference ID number, which is 211-942-820, then hit the pound. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. To authorize this hybrid form of meeting, I'm going to have a roll call of all members. Please state your name and whether you approve or not. I'll start with Ginny.
Ginny Fenwick, I approve.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Randy Potash, I approve.
David H. Veach, I approve.
I'll run quickly through how our meetings are conducted. To begin with, the hearing notice is read by the lady to my right. This is Sarah B. Clark. She's the PPO for the town. That's the Principal Permitting Officer. We will then have a presentation either by the applicant or their representative. When they are done, I would ask for anybody either here or on Microsoft Teams who wishes to speak in favor to indicate they'd like to join the meeting. When that is done, I would read any and all correspondence that we might have. Then I would ask for anyone either here or on Microsoft Teams who wishes to speak against or has a question. This is your opportunity to join our meeting and do that. When that's done, there could very well be some rebuttal. Then we would have questions from the members of the board to anyone who was involved in the discussion. When that's done, we will close the public hearing and go into deliberation. That's strictly for the members up here, unless a member interjects into the conversation, someone who had presented something previous to that. We would then have a vote in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. To be successful, you need to have a supermajority. That means, in our case, with 5 votes, you need to get 4 in favor to be successful. Are there any questions? Voting today will be, I believe it's Lee's turn. Lee, Paul, myself, Randy, and Dave. Okay, Sarah, let's start with minutes. I almost forgot, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have the minutes of September 14, 2023. I'll move to approve them as published.
Dave Veach, seconds.
Need a vote on that, Lee?
I agree.
Paul votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
Okay, I vote yes also. All right, now we'll go on to 23-081, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-081, Kathleen Cox and James Cox, care of Thad Eldridge, 1038 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 1369 Old Queen Anne Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 5I, Block 4, Lot C4. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling and proposed addition comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 865 square feet, 2.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,530 square feet, 4.9%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 31,220 square feet, where 60,000 square feet is required in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Thad.
Good afternoon. For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. Mr. Cox is here with me. See the rest of the family. So they were empty nesters, and now their daughter and son-in-law and 2 granddaughters have moved back in, and while they successfully raised a family of 5 in this home. Looking to expand a little bit to make some room. We're doubling the size of the footprint. We're going from about 660 square feet to 1,320 square feet. But that's still 5% of the lot, 30,000 square foot lot. We're keeping out of the conservation jurisdiction by proposing this outside the 100-foot buffer. And the lot is certainly adequate. As Sarah mentioned, we're going from 2.8% to 4.9% of the coverage, where we could go higher, and in many other cases we would be. The neighborhood is a mixture of different sized buildings in different towns. We actually had to advertise in Harwich on this one. There are a few large buildings across the street, and this one just fits right in. There is no new nonconformity being proposed other than the increase in habitable space on a nonconforming lot. The Coxes will be tying into the sewer with this. They've been holding on this project until sewer became available. This is still outside of the buffer, so it's fine for the wetland. We have a residential property, no real impact on the traffic flow. The dwelling is feet below the street level, so the mass is certainly reduced because of that. There'll be no impact on noise and litter, adequate utilities, and it's not a formula business. I did provide a video that Sarah can play, and I can apologize because my photography skills are not there yet. I need to practice with that. There is some of the coloring could have been better. This was using SketchUp combined with aerial LiDAR and aerial FODAR from the drone. I didn't take the time to put all the detail in. I just took the pictures and stretched it to the side, and that's to streamline that SketchUp process with this. And as I do these, I'll get better with the orientations, but this does show the neighborhood. The old cooperage across the street, rather sizable and historic building, the Methodist church across the street. And quite a few trees. So you'll notice that some of the sides of the buildings we can acquire with these methods, but usually we're looking straight down, so we don't always see the sides of the buildings. So you can see right into the church. And there we are. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Thank you, and thank you very much for providing that for us. That is a real treat for us. Okay. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate you wish to join the meeting.
I see no one to speak in favor.
Okay, I'll read the correspondence. First is from Judith Giorgio, the health agent for the town of Chatham. She writes on 10/11, I've reviewed the plan to renovate. The plan to add a third bedroom to this two-bedroom dwelling meets the requirements of the nitrogen loading regulations and the sewer regulations. The property has greater than 30,000 square feet of upland. The property will be connected to town sewer as part of this proposal. This is acceptable to the health department. Then we have an email. This is Mary O'Reilly and Ron Bergstrom. They are at 1347 Old Queen Anne Road. They write on October 12th, my husband and I both support our neighbor's plan for construction of an addition to their home for their family. And that is the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one in opposition or with a question.
Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Randy?
I have no questions.
I have no questions, Dave.
No questions.
I just have a couple of questions. Sorry. I'm assuming that the tree next to where the addition is going to be will come down.
There are 2 trees there that will have to come down, and there's one in conservation jurisdiction that may come down afterwards.
Okay, okay. And are the sheds that are below there, are they usable? Are they,
There are things stored in them.
there are, okay. I didn't really explore the sheds when I was out there. Thank you.
Paul?
No questions.
Okay.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that? Lee?
Yes.
All votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, deliberations. Dave?
This is certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It's an improvement. It fits completely. It meets all of our criteria, and I'm happy to support it.
Jenny?
I agree with Mr. Veach. I think it's a very nice-looking addition, and I think that it works well with the existing structure. It not only isn't increasing in any nonconformities, it's well exceeding anything that's required. So if I were voting today, I would support it.
Lee?
I agree with all the previous comments.
Paul?
And I also agree with the previous comments.
As do I.
Okay. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Any worry about conditions? Plenty of room there to...
I think there's plenty of room off-street, is there not?
Yes, there is. They'll get some cars out of there, and they'll have plenty of parking for the workers, so.
I don't see any need for additional conditions.
Okay, so just the usual?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to go
Please.
through those? Let me just see where I've got them.
Sarah can help you out.
They would be that all construction activity and vehicles should be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need a vote on that. Lee?
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Thad.
Thank you.
And don't move an inch, because let's go on to 23-083, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-083, David D. Drollinger and Patricia Q. Drollinger, care of Thad Eldridge, 1038 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 171 Morris Island Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16A, Block 41, Lot H71. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the construction of a partial second floor addition, dormers, and decks. The existing dwelling is nonconforming, and that it is located 17.5 feet from the road, 0.7 feet from the easterly abutter, 10.2 feet from the southerly abutter, 18 feet from the westerly abutter, and entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District. The proposed second floor addition will be nonconforming, and that it will be located 23.1 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required, and 0.7 feet from the easterly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed front deck will be nonconforming, and that it will be located 20.1 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required. The proposed rear deck will be nonconforming, and that it will be located 9.7 feet from the southerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The building coverage will remain 1,443 square feet, 22.4%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming, and that it contains 93 feet of frontage where 150 feet is required, contains 0 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 6,440 square feet of land area where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Thad?
Good afternoon again. For the record, Thad Eldridge. Dave Drollinger is in the audience if there are specific questions. So we have another project in the Little Beach area. This one's on a lot that's large for the area, at 6,400 square feet. It's an existing home, and what's unique with this one is we're not going up. We're not demolishing it and bringing the first floor up. It did go up at one point to comply with the floodplain regulations. And in order to do this project, they have to keep the value of the work at 50% or less the value of the home in its existing state. So it is forced to be a more minor project than some of the others we've brought before you in this area. With this, we have a number of dormers that are being proposed. The dormer on the west, the ceiling height in there is still going to be less than 7 feet, and that's really just a storage room, providing them with more space. On the east, the roof will be taken off and a second floor will be added to the same ridge elevation as the existing home. That is completely within the setback, but it's completely within the current building footprint. There is no lateral addition being proposed other than the decks. And when they're out there, nobody wants to go from the first floor deck down to the ground level. They'd like a little bit more room back there to enjoy themselves. Running through the criteria, the building coverage will remain the same. If it was inadequate already, then it's already there. The compatibility of the size structure, we've provided maps in the past. We have 700 to 1,450 square feet for the footprints. This is among the larger, but at the same time, this is one of the existing homes in the neighborhood. The proposed mass will increase from a 1.5 story to a 1 3/4 story, just with some decent dormers. We have an intrusion to the setback in the rear, an encroachment that's a 1/2 foot. We have put a little bit of a fiddle factor in there. The idea is to be at the 10-2, but when a board goes awry, they'll have that buffer space to save them from coming back. In the front, the setback's getting better because the front deck is closer to the street than the proposed. The increase in the deck has been offset with mitigation. The Conservation Commission has heard this project. We're not affecting any views, and arguably the dormers will increase the aesthetic value of the property. It's still going to be residential. The septic system is not being changed. It's adequate for the proposal. And we're not changing traffic flow, noise, litter. The utilities are adequate. And we are not proposing a lateral addition or a lateral expansion to the home other than the deck, which is pervious. So we meet that criteria. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting.
There's no one to speak in favor.
Okay, I'll read the correspondence. First, we have a note from Judith Giorgio, health agent for the town of Chatham. She writes on 10/11, reviewed the plan to renovate. The plan as proposed does not appear to add septic. The use of the existing septic system is acceptable for continued use, and the additions will not encroach on the required setbacks to the septic system. Then we have a note from the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Administrative Assistant, Crystal Keon, writes on September 25th, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on October 25th to issue an order of conditions. The project as proposed will be conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Local Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 272, and regulations promulgated thereunder. Then we have a letter. This is from Peter and Susan McConnell. They're at 191 Morris Island Road. They write on October 6th, we live at 191, neighbors. We reviewed the plan submitted to the ZBA, requesting permission to renovate the home at 171. We support the application. The proposed renovation will be a compliment to the neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration. Then we have a note from Charles and Ann Shuey. They're at 32 Clamshell Drive. And they write on October 4th, We embrace the right of property owners to enhance their property and the attendant value of it. We are writing to support the proposed plan to improve their property. We have reviewed the plan and see that the proposed additions and changes substantially upgrade the property and are consistent with the other properties in our small Tom's Neck community. Most of the new construction will not be viewed from our property since the majority happens on the opposite side from us. Further changes appear to fit in with the ambiance of the neighborhood and will increase the value of all properties in the area. However, if the building contractor should use our driveway, that our driveway of clamshells and its railroad-tie perimeter would be restored to its original appearance by the Durrell engines. Finally, since we are seasonal residents and reside from approximately Memorial Day to Columbus Day, we would appreciate having construction prohibited during that period to allow us to enjoy the property. Then we have a note from Heidi and Brendan Driscoll, 157 Morris Island Road, September 27th. We are writing in support of the proposed work. We have lived in our current house for 6 years and the greater neighborhood for 22. The proposal will fit the character of the neighborhood and be a positive improvement. Then we have a note from Jill and Michael Dalek. They are at 165 Morris Island Road. They write on September 29th, where the owner is 165, which abuts this project. We have been their neighbors since they purchased their home, and know Dave and Patty are thoughtful neighbors with a deep appreciation for the character of our community. We support the application and the project. We appreciate their efforts to maintain and enhance their home. We know that the project will be a positive for our Morris Island Little Beach neighborhood. We appreciate the board's consideration. Then we have a note from Kimberly and Peter Chipman, and they're from 10 and 21 Little Beach Road on September 28th. We are in total support of the above captioned application and project. We reside in the neighborhood for 27 years and feel strongly that the proposed enhancement of the home will be a positive for the Little Beach neighborhood. Thanks to the board for your continued careful consideration over the past several years. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this project or has a specific question? Now is your time to enter the conversation.
There's no one with a question or in opposition.
Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Ginny?
I have no questions.
Lee?
I have no questions.
Paul?
I have no questions.
Randy?
So, careful consideration causes me to ask one more time about that 6 inches closer to the southerly neighbor with the back deck. No, it's your intent to not be 6 inches closer, but it's just in case?
Correct. Correct. On many of the projects where we've gone to the exact distance, something goes awry. One board slips, we're an inch too close, 2 inches, whatever the number is, and we're back before you. Mr. Briggs advised us to fake the numbers by half a foot or so, just to give that buffer in case something goes awry.
I know it's nitpicky, but just, I'll wait for deliberations, but we'll talk
Dave.
about that again.
Yeah, the only thing I was just wondering, that looking into, I could see, restricted on what you could do with this. I'm just curious, were someone to come along, the current or future owners, and seek to raise this to the new floodplain levels, is there room to do that without needing a variance, do you know, or where are we?
Since the proposed ridge line is going to meet the existing ridge line, they would be in the same problem no matter what.
Right, that much I noticed. I just wondered, I appreciate you didn't try to go any higher with the ridge. I'm just curious how it matches, the existing situation matches to the new floodplain regulations.
Okay, so they would have to go up 1.6 feet, and they have the adequate room for that right now under the current
So
bylaw.
if someone were to do it, they'd be able to do it via special permit and not need a variance.
Right now, but when the flood maps change, and if it goes
changes
up again,
who
then-
knows? But
yes.
in the present situation, this is one of those homes that was elevated to meet the former regulations, and
Yes.
now the newer ones are higher, so, yeah. That's all I have, Dave. Thanks.
Okay. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach, seconds.
Need a vote? Lee?
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Yes.
Beach votes yes.
And I agree, okay. Deliberations. Lee?
Well, we've seen a lot of these in this area. It's clearly unique. The lots are small, but I think this is a good project. I don't think it would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Paul?
Yes, I agree. I think overall it is a good project. The extent to which it's going to affect the neighborhood is really facing across the street away from everybody else, pretty much. So I think the impact on the neighborhood is minimal, so I will definitely approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just think it's important to think about, if you go down there, you say, gee, everything is so close together, and the ZBA lets them get even closer. So that's why I'm raising concern. I'm not saying it's substantially more detrimental, but I think it is more detrimental for sure to do anything there practically. But I will still support it, but I just wanted to make that statement.
Dave?
Yeah, I think it certainly is, fits perfectly into the neighborhood, the proposal does. And it's not substantially more detrimental. I think it's actually an improvement, and I'd be happy to support it.
Ginny?
I echo Randy's comments in particular, but more broadly, the comments from the board, so I have nothing else to add.
Thad, thank you for including this elevation certificate application. Man, it's like more paperwork and more paperwork, huh? Anyway, thanks for doing that. Okay,
Thad, what do you think in terms of construction? The normal construction confinements work okay?
We shouldn't have any construction here in the summer because I think there's only been one project that's been allowed to work in the summer down here, and that probably shouldn't have been in the summer. So I think
All right.
that's certainly
I will move to approve the application as submitted with the following conditions: that all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Thad, the Shoeys made a request that the dates be Memorial Day to Columbus Day. Any comment on that?
And I'm sorry, what's the starting date that, it's June 15th
Well, they were
that
talking
we
about,
normally have.
Paul was saying June 30th,
June 30th to Labor Day is what I suggested.
but the Shoeys made a request, and that's why I'm bringing it up. To begin Memorial Day and end on Columbus Day.
For just the exterior. They can still do interior work. Oh, then,
Well, I don't know.
I believe Memorial Day
I'm just bringing it
next
up
year
for the
is
Shoeys, that's all.
May
I don't know.
27th.
All right, so how does everybody feel about that? Randy?
I don't think there should be any restrictions.
I'm very reluctant to stretch it that much. That's a big chunk of the year, and I appreciate, the neighbors' concerns, but that's asking a lot. We've gone back and around with this, and getting it on both ends, Memorial Day and then, to Columbus Day is a lot. I would prefer our normal times myself.
Jenny?
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised to see that long of a period requested when I read it. So I agree with my colleagues. I think it's too long.
Lee?
I think we should go with our normal conditions.
The only thing that I would say is Morris Island Road is unbelievably busy. Thanks to me and others who have to travel on it. I mean, So I'd almost say, is there a compromise? Let's say June 15th to September 15th. Gives them a little cushion on either end, only because it is so busy there.
That's more reasonable. I could live with that, sure.
Jenny? Lee?
I like it.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Okay.
Well, you're certainly more familiar with that area than we are.
That's for
so
sure.
I will go with that restriction then.
Okay,
So David seconds the motion.
okay, then we need a vote. Lee?
I vote yes.
Paul?
All votes yes?
Randy?
Yes,
Each votes yes.
I vote yes, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you
Thank you so
very
much.
much, Thad.
Good luck with the rest of the meeting.
Okay, Sarah, on to 23-082, please.
Application number 23-082, Anthony and Nancy Guarino, care of Larry Brody, P.O. Box 92, Harwichport, Mass. 02646. Owners of property located at 155 Pleasant Street, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 2B, Block 59, Lot 6. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing garage and the construction of a new garage with habitable space. The existing garage is nonconforming and it is located 8.8 feet from the southerly abutter. The proposed garage with habitable space will be nonconforming in that it will be located 9 feet from the southerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,527 square feet, 14.1%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,627 square feet, 14.6%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 95.52 feet of frontage where 100 feet is required, and contains 17,975 square feet where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon. My name's Larry Brody, contractor for Tony and Nancy Guarino, owners of 155 Pleasant. As presented in the plans, we're proposing to demolish and replace the existing garage structure. The garage will be replaced with an accessory structure comprised of a single-car garage and approximately 716 square feet of habitable space spread over 1.5 stories. We will maintain the existing non-conforming southerly sideline setback, and the construction of the accessory structure will produce no new nonconformities on the property in regards to dimensional requirements, lot coverage, or building height. For the criteria, adequacy of the site proves to be adequate for the structure as we're replacing an existing structure currently located on the property. While our new structure's footprint will be approximately 60 square feet bigger than the existing one, we maintain adequate building coverage for the lot and produce no new nonconformity. The structure will be replaced, maintaining the existing 8.8-foot southerly sideline setback, and the structure will conform to all other dimensional and height requirements. Compatibility of size of the proposed structure for neighboring properties. The size of the new structure is compatible with all other properties in the neighborhood. Many of the properties on the street have detached garages and/or structures, including the property next door at number 145 and the one across the street at 144. Though we are adding a second floor to the proposed structure, it's in similar style and will be complementary to the main dwelling. The proposed structure is clearly subordinate to the main dwelling as it's less than 1/3 of the main dwelling's footprint and set back to almost the rear plane of the existing dwelling. It's an obvious garage with an 8-foot overhead door on the front facing the street and the driveway. Extent of produced increase in nonconformity. There'll be no increase in any of the nonconformity of the property except for the fact that we are adding limited habitable space to a nonconforming property. Number 4, suitability of the site. We find the site to be suitable for the project as there's already a structure in place and has been for quite some time. Impact on the neighboring properties will be minimal. While the proposed structure is taller than the existing structure, it sits on the north side of the closest abutting property, so little to no interference of blocking sun or light will occur. Only the necessary trees and vegetation for construction will be removed, so the new structure will remain buffered from the abutting property to the east. Impact on vegetation. There's one large white pine on the backside of the building that will be removed for the purposes of keeping vegetation off the structure. Can you put up, I sent some pictures. It's probably the first one. Yeah, so that one shows that one tree that will be removed, marked very nicely with an X. And if you go to the next one, Sarah, there it is. It's a white pine that hangs over the abutting driveway that's constantly being trimmed back and more of a nuisance than anything. The underbrush and invasive vines on the right side of the garage will be cleared for construction. And then upon completion, a modest green screen of native plants will be installed to provide a buffer for the neighboring properties, prevent anybody from driving into the garage from the neighbor's driveway or, yeah, so if you went out there, you might have seen 5 other trees were marked. That was just for, consideration for the neighbors of potential other trees that may be pruned in the process. Runoff, no change in runoff, really due to the replacement of the structure. The existing structure has gutters. We plan to put on gutters of the new one and, maintain dry wells and make sure that water is kept on the property. Impact of scale, siting, mass on the neighborhood. The new structure will hopefully improve the visual character of the neighborhood by removing dilapidated old garage. It'll be in keeping with other properties in close proximity. Neighborhood views and vistas will not be impacted. The use will remain the same as it is now. Single family residential property with an accessory building. This neighborhood has a ton of accessory buildings. Just a quick rundown Pleasant Street. I counted 24 out of 61 properties, or about 40%, have detached buildings or accessory structures. This one very similar in design and shape to the one approved and built across the street a couple of years ago. The site's to be serviced with an on-site septic system and domestic water service, which have both been deemed adequate. There will be no impact to traffic or safety, no impact on neighborhood noise or increased litter, and the current utilities are adequate for the proposed work. Just a quick comment, my client's intent is to move here full-time. This is not an investment property. They live in Chicago now and want to return home to Massachusetts, where they both come from. They're excited. Their house is already sold, and once this project's complete, they'll be members of our community. We've put a lot of time and effort in over the last 18 months to work with Jay and Sarah and Health Department to kind of alleviate any issues that would potentially come up during the approval process. We made changes and kind of worked hard to get to a finished product that everybody is satisfied with. So we're excited to move forward. Final comment, I'm aware there's been some lengthy correspondence that was received today, and I ask, when appropriately, just the opportunity to reply to a couple of the points in it. But look forward to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one to speak in favor.
Okay. I'll read the correspondence. The first is from Christina Bassett, and she writes for the Historical Commission. On October 12th, she wrote, "The commission heard of the house and the barn on March 21st. The house was reviewed only under Chapter 158, and the commission found the house to be historically significant, but the work proposed did not materially diminish its historical significance, so therefore they did not impose a demolition delay. The barn was reviewed under both Chapter 158 and the Cape Cod Commission Act. The commission felt that the only one wall of the original structure remained. They found the barn to be historically significant but did not impose a demolition delay. The commission reaffirmed that the structure was a contributing structure in the South Chatham National Register District but did not refer it to the Cape Cod Commission. Judith Giorgio, health agent for the town, writes on 10/11, I've reviewed the plan. The property was approved for 3 bedrooms when Title V septic was installed in 1986. The proposed plan calls for the removing 1 bedroom in the main house and relocating it to the guest house/garage. The septic system must be relocated to accommodate the renovations and the proposed pool. A septic plan and the application must be submitted prior to approval for the building permit. Then we have a very lengthy letter that is 4 pages, 5. And it's from John and Bridget Bernardi, and their address is 167 Pleasant Street. Well, I should say that on the ZBA rules and regulations, anything more than 1 page of typed does not necessarily have to be read in its entirety. So I'm not going to try and paraphrase this. Are Mr. and Mrs. Bernardi here? Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to try and do it. But 5 pages is not what we look forward to reading, put it that way, or I don't look forward to it. So if I skip around, I'll try and get their high points. We own the property at 167, and then
We are here, I'm sorry to interrupt, John and myself are on the call.
okay. All right. You heard what I said?
Yes,
Okay. Is that okay with you, or would you rather present it
Yeah.
yourself?
yes, no, that's fine.
Okay. So they talk about why they've submitted this too late, because this letter only came in today. So first, we question whether Section 5B of the protective bylaw in Chatham even applies, as this entire non-conforming structure will be raised and rebuilt. So we would ask why the requirements for a new structure will not be applied, including setbacks. Then they go on to talk about different things about 5B. How can a completely demolished structure be enlarged, extended, or changed when it no longer exists? It appears the structure, when rebuilt, will include another story. Would Section 5C, which addresses restoration after deterioration, be more applicable? Under that section, necessary rebuilding and so forth. We contend that rebuilding, in essence, what will be a second dwelling, which contains a second story, habitable space, full bath, and wet bar on the side of the 2-car garage, is substantially changing the character and size of the former garage, as well as its use, and would not be permitted under Section 5C. Second, we have concerns regarding the proposed height increase of the detached garage. And I won't go into the specifics, they simply have a concern about that. Third, we are concerned about the removal of the existing mature vegetable plantings and the subsequent impact. Mr. Brutti had talked about things. They say here some 6 to 7 trees have been marked by you. So when you get around to your comments, I hope you will talk about that, okay? It would alleviate many concerns, anyway. Fourth, we would like to ensure that the issues which occurred at 144 Pleasant Street with this gentleman, who is representing the applicant, do not happen. The construction of 144 Pleasant was the subject of the application. Although the final product is beautiful and an asset to the neighborhood, structures were built within the setbacks where the non-conforming structure was already less than 4 feet from the abutter, that were not approved by the first special permit, which required Mr. Brutti to seek the board's approval to amend the special permit and to request a variance after the construction. Mr. Brody represented at the hearing on July 28th that he does most of his work in Dennis and Harwich, and the construction errors were due to specific requirements in the Chatham regulations with which he was unfamiliar. Although the special permit was amended and the variance granted, we want to make sure that history does not repeat itself and request that the board take measures to prevent these errors from occurring. We do not want things constructed which have not been approved. In addition, although the demolition of the garage was approved by the Historical Commission, we believe the narrative contained in the application dated February 26, 2023, regarding the scope of the project was somewhat misleading. We've attached a narrative which states replacement of the garage will occur in similar shape and scale to complement the dwelling in the neighborhood. We do not believe that adding a second story, a wet bar, and a full bath to a two-car garage is neither similar shape or scale, nor complementary to the dwelling when the current dwelling is only one story. We have reviewed the special permit criteria. I'll go through. Number one, we believe the size of the site to be inadequate for the proposed increase in the height of the garage. Two, we do not believe the size of the proposed structure is compatible with neighboring properties, as we do not believe there are other properties in the neighborhood that appear to have two dwelling units or where the garage appears higher than the principal dwelling. Three, we believe the extent of the proposed increase in the nonconforming nature of the structure and use is unnecessary. Additional habitable space could be accommodated by increasing the size of the dwelling, which is further away from the abutters and would be less imposing to the neighbors and more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood to have a principal dwelling higher than its garage. We are also concerned that the garage as proposed will be actually used as a studio-type dwelling. A home office typically does not require a full bathroom and wet bar. If you merely plug in an oven, you will have an apartment. We believe that the site is not suitable for the proposed, this is number 4, we believe the site is not suitable for the proposed increase in the nonconforming nature of the structure given its impact on the neighboring properties. The proposed increased size of the nonconforming structure so close to the southerly abutter on an already smaller nonconforming lot is too much. Substantial height and removal of trees will essentially remove the green view and privacy. The impact of the scale, number 5, impact of scale, siting, and mass on the proposed project of the neighboring physical character, including views and vistas, is a negative one that will impact the privacy of 167 and 169, and the subject premises from the street will have to have 2 separate dwellings on a smaller non-conforming lot. 6, the proposed use is not compatible with the neighboring uses. The neighborhood is composed of single-family dwellings, and this lot will appear to have 2. 7 through 8, an additional dwelling unit with a wet bar, full bath, and heating for the additional habitable space will negatively impact sewage disposal, water, traffic flow, noise, litter, and utilities. We respectfully request that the board consider the following. 1, approving only a half bath and eliminating the wet bath. We are not opposed to the outside shower. 2, require the garage to be a true, quote-unquote, 1.5-story structure such that the dormers have to be outside of the exterior wall and cannot align with the exterior wall. We believe that as designed, the garage is a 2-story structure since the top of the window wall is at a 2-story height. 3, require the ridge height of the proposed garage be lower and not higher or the same as the dwelling so that the proposed garage remains subordinate to the principal building on the lot and prevents the appearance of 2 dwelling units. 4, require the site plan to include a landscaping plan which itemizes the type of vegetation and so forth. 5, require oversight of the construction to prevent mistakes being made. 6, impose the board's usual conditions, which we understand typically include June 30th to Labor Day and so forth. So they're just going through what we usually do. We also request that the special permit prohibit the parking of worker vehicles and delivery/supply vehicles from obstructing the driveway for 167 and 169 and the public roadway.
Those are just their attachments.
Right, okay. And I think that's the extent of the correspondence. So, now I would ask, is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting. There's a gentleman in the back. If you'd come up to the microphone, please. Just state your name and your address and...
Thank you. My name's Sean Cobble. I'm a Chatham resident. I've been asked by the future abutter to speak on their behalf. The future abutter is going to purchase the property at 169 Pleasant Street, which is on the back property line of 155. That sale is scheduled for October 20th, so in about a week. They just found out about this hearing through me reading about it in the Chronicle on the public hearing. The reason I'm here is to just bring this to the attention of all of you. And I also understand that Katie Brennan, the future abutter, is on remote, waiting to speak if she's allowed to. And also Mr. Bernardi is on remote in case he wants to speak or you want to ask him anything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So that everybody understands, the town notifies abutters, but they have no knowledge about a future sale, so that's why these folks would not be. But the folks who own it now were notified and should have made that known to any prospective purchaser. Yes, sir.
We are present owners, and may I be heard, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is John Bergio, and I, along with my wife Sandra, who is here, are the present owners of 169 Pleasant Street. Just for the record, this is a piece of property that's been in my family for 3 generations since the 1950s, and we have owned it since 1999. And we, too, appreciate the beauty of the natural trees and shrubbery that has grown up and provided great privacy between 167 and 169. At one time, we owned 167. 9 years ago, we sold that property to the Bernardis. They, too, love and appreciate the privacy provided between 155, 167, and, of course, 169. Let me make it clear that we went to contract with this prospective buyer who was under contract with us on August 7th. The notice that we received from this board, excuse me. Find it here. I believe it was dated September 23rd. We received it about a week later. We have been in constant contact with our buyer, who we've had a great relationship with. And as soon as we received this, within a day or two, we were on the phone with her when John Cobble obviously became aware that there was more extensive plans than just demolishing what appears to be an historic garage. We found out for the first time that this was going to take place when we received this official notice that we're talking about here. We had no communication with the Guarinos. I think over the 8 years that they've owned the property, we may have met them once when they closed in 2015. I wouldn't have known them if I walked past them on the street. Mr. Guarino called me for the first time to reintroduce himself to myself and my wife last night. He apologized profusely for not speaking to us personally about this, which I understand has been in the cooker now for 18 months, and we didn't know about it. Our primary residence is in South Carolina. We spend 7 months in South Carolina and usually 4 to 5 months in Cape Cod. So we had no notice of any historical application made regarding this subject property. We had no notice that anything was going to be done until we received the official mailing notice. So I want the record clear that we did in no way have any ability to tell our prospective buyer under contract that this project was going to take place with this particular scope. We share her concerns, and we've made this known to the builder, and we cordially spoke to Mr. Guarino, and we wished him luck on the application. And that's about all I have to say, unless you have questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Please show your hand. And on Microsoft Teams, who do we have?
Hello, good afternoon. This is John Bernardi. My wife Bridget and I own 167. As John Bergio mentioned, we purchased it from John and Sandy. I think it was actually about 13, almost 14 years ago. I forget my inaccuracy. But you know, we live in New Jersey. We actually do primarily use the property for rental purposes throughout the summer, and our kind of long-term plan, I think, is as many Cape homeowners do, is to try to kind of tailor our retirement towards up there. And we're probably about 10 years away from that. The first we heard of the proposed changes were my wife and daughter were up there just this past weekend for Columbus Day weekend. I wasn't up there, I was home with a different child. But that was our first notice. I have met Tony Guarino. I've spoken to him in person, and then I've spoken to him over the phone yesterday. I definitely don't want this to be an antagonistic encounter. I hope that we can have a long, pleasant, neighborly relationship, much as the same way that we've had with John and Sandy all these years. But we were somewhat taken aback by the changes that were proposed, and most of our information has kind of come in the last 72, 96 hours. Our concerns, we wrote up in that letter. I apologize, I'm not the most comfortable public speaker, especially feeling like I don't fully grasp all of the aspects of this discussion. But our main concerns really are the pulling down of the vegetation, which will really, I feel, impact our privacy, and the difference between a two-story building completely blocking out sun from that angle compared to a living hedge that has, peaks and valleys, in addition to the other points that have been brought up as far as kind of the garage potentially looking to dominate the property as opposed to the main domestic dwelling dominating the property. I'm happy to answer direct questions, but I don't really have any other prepared statement to be making.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone?
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Catherine Brennan.
There's one
I
lady.
would like to,
Please state your name.
thank you. Catherine M. Brennan.
Yes.
I will be involved with the purchase of 169 Pleasant Street in the coming weeks. I just found out about the proposed building, I think it was October 1st, when John Coble contacted me. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was going on. I reached out to Anthony Guarino. He is a very nice gentleman, was very apologetic for not sharing the plans with the Bergios before now. He understood the issues that I was concerned about, which is mostly the privacy. 169 Pleasant, one of the reasons why we're buying it is because it reminds me so much of Old Cape Cod. It's very private, very quaint. And I'm concerned that that's going to change dramatically with the increase in size of the non-conforming structure. Mr. Brody was very accommodating in listening to our concerns, meeting with Mr. Coble last week to look at vegetation that would be removed. But I do believe that there needs to be more definitiveness in regards to the vegetation that will be removed, as well as the vegetation that will be installed. There's very little buffer between the two properties. There is no room for error here. There's no room for mistakes, which is what occurred at 144. I'm very concerned about that. The garage will not be a subordinate structure to the dwelling any longer with the increased height. I'm also concerned, which I don't think is the subject of this hearing, with the pool. I'm concerned that there is increased impervious surface area on that property, which will impact drainage and storm runoff to my property. So I would just urge the board to review this, as you do always, with consideration to the abutters and our concerns. And I look forward to working with the builder and the homeowner, Mr. DeGarinos, in trying to get something that we all are comfortable with. We want to be neighborly, and this is certainly not the introduction I wanted to the neighborhood. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I'm very disappointed that this occurred. So thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak?
There's no one else that wishes to speak.
Rebuttal.
As far as the communication goes, the property's been rented to a full-time renter for the past 4 to 5 years. The Greeno's used it for the first time in those 4 or 5 years this summer. I really can't speak to their relationship with their neighbors. I wave to mine. I don't tell them everything I'm planning on ever doing in my neighborhood. In my yard, I believe he has a right to work on his own property, improve it. That's why we have boards like this, to make sure they're following a set of guidelines. His intent, him and his wife, his intent is to keep a private backyard. There has been no discussion of clear cutting trees. There's been no discussion of removing a green buffer. If you pace it off, naturally, there's a 15-foot buffer along the back property line abutting 169, and a 167, there's about a 20-foot buffer. They plan on maintaining that. They plan on removing the dead and dying beetle-filled trees, removing the vines, and creating more privacy. Just like these folks don't want to see them, they don't want to see them. So I'm not sure where the inclination came that the entire place is going to be decimated and clear cut. That is not the intention at all. As I showed you with the first picture, that one white pine is really, and the scrub brush to the right of the garage, is really the vegetation to be affected by this project. If they did not want to do this project, they have every right to go in and trim whatever trees and brush they want. Of course, it would be neighborly to talk with neighbors and make sure everybody's okay. But once again, they have no intention of that. They want to keep a private yard. So as far as vegetation goes, I pointed it out. I've put an X on it. I've marked it. I've walked the property with multiple neighbors. That's the tree that's coming down. That it needs to physically happen. It was celebrated by the Bergios that it was coming down. So as far as trees go, that's what we have. As far as communication goes, like I said, they're not residents here. They spend limited amount of time. So I know they have a good relationship with the neighbor to the left. They've been aware of this project for probably a year. So I can't really speak any more about that. I will make the comment that we were approached with a request to withdraw this application. However, I've never spoken to Mr. Bernardi, and until yesterday, my client hasn't spoken with him. So if Mr. Bernardi made that request, we never got it. We never heard it. Like I said, I've worked with Catherine's representative, as well as the Bergios. We've met. They've asked for the property to be staked. Happy to stake it. Identify trees. Happy to identify them. Everything's been above board. There's no, if you've been out there, we understand the sensitivity of the setback and the proximity to the driveway. The comment made on the sun just gets me because my kids are into planets and all that. This house, the proposed structure, is north of the Bernardi's house. It's astronomically impossible for the sun to cast a shadow on that property. So I understand the concern. I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's just impossible. As far as the correct bylaw, I believe the zoning official determines that, so I'm working.
Yeah, you don't need to react to that.
Just two more comments. They alluded to the building height. I know that's been contentious. They state that it's going to be a full 10'6" or full story above the dwelling. That's not true. If you look at the plan, it measures 4'6" in a difference in ridge height. So that was one thing I just wanted to clarify. And speaking to the issue at 144, I personally made the mistake of setting exterior mechanicals within the dimensional setback to the neighboring property. When the as-built came, Jay called me, said, hey, we got a problem, went out, identified the issue. I have pictures, I won't belabor the situation. We made right on it, we went through it. Chatham's the only town that has a requirement for exterior mechanicals to meet abutter setbacks. I apologized, we took care of it. I've been working in the town for over 15 years. That's the only time came and had to revise anything. So Mr. Nixon was not happy about it, but we got through that. Rules are rules. I hear you.
Yeah, I was the only no vote.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All set?
All set.
All right. Questions from the board? Paul?
Well, I guess overall, I have some hesitation in moving forward with this at this point, given that due to the circumstances, so many of the neighbors are just learning about it very recently and need to put together the sense of their opposition. And I think that a landscaping plan would be very beneficial to show us what's going to be put in that is not there now and what is going to be taken out, so that we have a better feel for the privacy issues and the impact on the neighborhood. Aside from that, I also have a little bit of a feeling that the tail is wagging the dog here with the size of the garage versus the size of the house. And the house is a one-story house, which it seems to me the garage ends up being pretty prominent. There are a lot of places on Pleasant Street that have cut-in driveways that go to back lots. I mean, there's a load of them all along in there. So I'm not necessarily concerned that there's a garage that's going to be continued. But we have a neighbor who is objecting to continuing it on the same setback line that is not conforming. And in the past, we've been sensitive to those issues. So those are all my questions that I tend to raise in looking at the issue. I'll leave those for people to deal with.
Randy, questions?
So just to be clear, the new garage is going to be 4.6 feet larger, taller than the house?
The ridge height
Yeah.
of the existing house, yes, the proposed garage, the ridge height will be 4.6 feet taller than the existing ridge of the existing house.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Questions, Dave?
Oh, boy. Well, so just to further clarify, Larry, so the proposal is 4.6 feet higher than the ridge of the existing house.
Yes.
By my reading the site plan, the ridge of the garage will be 10.5 feet higher than the existing garage ridge.
Existing garage ridge as it is now. Yes.
Okay, just to clarify, so
Yes.
everybody understands.
Yep.
I know this is time for questions, so maybe I'll save, and Paul shared some of his concerns. I'd like to speak to some of that, but I don't think in question, I think I'll wait until.
Deliberations?
Till
Okay.
deliberations. Let me just take a quick look down my list here. I mean, and you know, I'm glad you pointed out, Larry, that it's impossible, short of moving to the southern hemisphere, for a house that's north of a building to cast a shadow on it. That was one of the points I picked up on. Yeah, okay, I don't think at this point I have any other questions or
Okay.
comments, for sure.
Questions, Ginny?
Okay, I have a lot of questions. Can you confirm the footprint? So we're only talking about the change to the garage. There is a change going on in the house, but that's
That's
outside of this.
Exactly.
Okay, so the only change we're talking about is the change to the garage. The footprint of the garage is changing 60 square feet, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. The height of the house, 26.5, is that right?
The height of the garage building.
I mean the garage, the height of the
is
garage.
23 and a half feet. The elevation change is 26 and a half feet.
Okay. So then is the height of the garage 23 or 26?
The structure itself will be 23 and a half feet.
Okay. All right, going to the floor plans, I have two A3s here. The only difference between the two is that in one of them, the word kitchen is there, and in the other one, it's been changed to wet bar.
Yes,
All right, so is there no bedroom going on in this?
there is no bedroom.
No bedroom?
No
So you're gonna have a kitchen, and you're gonna have a bathroom? And you
Yes.
can't have a bedroom?
Not a kitchen. There will be no cooking appliance.
Okay, so the one that changed from kitchen to wet bar, it's the exact same layout? It
It's the
has,
exact same layout. Yeah,
well, I mean, it has a rendering of a refrigerator and a sink. I mean, it looks like a kitchen. It's called a wet bar now, but it's not going to be a kitchen?
right, no cooking appliance.
So what will this, okay, so what will be there? Just refrigerator and a sink?
Yes,
Okay. All right. The site plan says that it's a 1.5-story house. All the renderings show 2 full levels, like 2 windows level. So is it really a 1-story, or is it 2 levels? What is the height of the full floor, the floors?
it'll be a 7'10" ceiling on the first floor.
Okay.
The garage, of course, will be higher as it's stepped
Okay.
down.
All right, that's not that high. Okay, on one of the site plans, there's a picture of a pool. I know the pool is not what we're discussing here, but it's not shown on the other one, and I was just curious about that.
Well, because we have no plan for the pool as of now.
Okay.
Pending this approval or wherever this stands, the client may or may not pursue the pool.
Okay.
And as I've alluded to in the past, we didn't want anything on the plan that wasn't either there or if in case it moves or changes.
Yeah, no, it just was a question because I had both, so
Yep.
it wasn't
Yeah,
clear
the
to me.
draft plan had,
Okay.
and then the stamped plan, the pool was removed.
Okay. Let's see if that was, so you talked about the tree that's being removed. I agree with Paul that a vegetation or landscape plan would be a good idea, given the feedback we've received from the neighbors. The tree in particular that you're saying that was Xed out to leave,
Nope, to be removed.
To be-
That
to-
singular tree.
that tree is the one that's right next to the neighbor that is at the 8.8
Yes.
setback? Okay. Is there any way the tree can stay?
No, it's directly on, did you go out?
Yeah.
It's directly on the property line, and any overdig to do the construction will essentially kill it.
Okay.
And with the investment into the property, having a pine tree within 5 feet, that's just gonna continually grow into it, makes little to no sense.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Lee?
I don't really have too many questions. They've pretty much all been answered. But I just wanted to clarify that it's going from a two-car garage to a one-car garage, correct?
Yep,
And no bedroom upstairs.
no bedroom.
Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Lee?
I vote yes.
All votes yes?
Yes,
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Deliberations. Randy?
I agree with Paul that I think it might be a good idea to come back after, getting a little bit more information and making some changes, even based on some of the comments you heard. So I would be very comfortable with you doing that, if that's something that you consider. Otherwise, I can tell you what I think of I wouldn't.
Well, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I wouldn't support it at this juncture, because it looks like two houses on one lot. I mean, and I don't think that really is consistent with the neighborhood. At the beginning of the street, there's a lot of small houses. I know there are accessory, but they're all way in back of, they're not out on the street. You never see on that whole street two houses on one lot, and that's what this looks like.
Directly across the street is the exact same project. Sarah, will you put up the picture?
For some reason, it didn't strike me, though. I missed it.
No, and like I had mentioned before, this garage structure, the front of it will be pretty much in line with the rear wall of the existing house. So this is not forward of the house by any stretch
I
of the
know it's
imagination.
not forward, but it's really in this, practically the same footprint. So, I think it looks like two houses on a small lot, and I think that going with the criteria, adequacy of the size of the site, I don't think it's an adequate site for two houses on one lot. Compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. There may be one across the street, but by and large, it's single-family homes with some garages. As a general rule. And, let's see. Suitability of the site, impact on neighboring properties. Well, I don't necessarily consider everybody's comments to be, part of the criteria, because, properties are forever, neighbors are, limited in time.
Sure.
And justice should be blind anyway. It has nothing to do with the character of the applicant, and I think that gets a little bit misunderstood. But I basically think the streetscape, the idea of noise and litter, not litter, but noise, it looks like, I've said it twice, two houses on one lot. I don't think it's appropriate for that street.
Dave?
Where to start and where to stop. From time to time, we do get some lengthy, or we have in the past gotten some lengthy and withering comments from neighbors on projects from time to time. And in this case, I read through it all. I went back out there, took a long look at things. And the first thing, I first was kind of taking it from some of the things that they were asking, I think and Paul, and Randy, both, I'm not sure, we're a zoning bylaw board, and we can certainly take into account vegetation with respect to privacy trying to maintain privacy, but I don't think I counted like maybe 5 trees with yellow ribbons on them, one being the pine that was pointed out, which is right near the garage, and that I would agree with, that probably needs to go, but that one's not providing privacy really so much for the dwellings in the back lot or on the side. And so, with respect to the pines in the back corner that also have rims on them, I'm not comfortable stepping in and saying that that's something we should be considering in making our decisions about this. Honestly, I think that some of the requests and interpretations of the bylaw that the neighbors have made, to me, it strikes me as they're kind of trying to leverage their positions beyond what is right with respect to the owner's property rights here. You know, and there's been a lot of talk, and I'm sorry I didn't get to ask. I was going to ask Jay perhaps to clarify this, but there was a lot of talk, and Randy even started about 2 houses on the lot. Well, you know, I think first of all, you're not necessarily looking at our definitions in the bylaw and the interpretations of these buildings and the structures. So I don't think calling it 2, even that's been kind of suggested, that it's 2 houses, but I don't think this is 2 houses on a lot. This proposal meets the definitions, and it's not a dwelling unit. It's not, and even though it's a call that, it's not a dwelling unit. It has living space above the garage is the proposal. Our bylaw allows it if we find that it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I've seen, and you know, we've got something coming back to us later in a similar kind of situation that we saw before. And, you know, I have to say, in thinking about some of these situations, like this proposal that they're seeking to move living space over the garage. And, you know, I'm thinking how hard this town has worked to put in an ADU bylaw, and it's had one or two responses to it. And not saying that this is an ADU necessarily, but it's an ADU adjacent kind of proposal in some ways. And so were this kind of situation to be created, I don't think it's a bad thing for the town. You know, I watched a couple friends of mine at a church meeting on Sunday, imploring, a friend of theirs who works at CVI is trying to come up with housing, desperately trying to find housing in the town. And I just can't help but think, well, all right, so, you know, if you've got someone, you know, maybe who's elderly or whatever, and they happen to have a situation like this, it's a lot easier for them to say, oh, sure, we can rent something to you for, you know, part-time. Whether it has the cooking facilities or not, we've gotten into this question a number of times. And I think we should be looking at the larger picture with some of these kinds of proposals that come before us. And this is another one. I certainly see, I understand that, you know, people didn't, or they feel like they didn't get notice of this in a timely fashion or time to respond. I would just say that if, and I will go along with continuing this if this is what most of the members want, but I'm certainly not gonna prejudice them to be thinking that I'm likely to be acknowledging some of these objections that have been put up. I think that the neighbor has a legitimate concern in that they're seeking to put another story on the garage that's within the setback on that side. But absent that, I mean, they have the right to come here and ask us for it, and we could make a determination. That's, to me, that's a legitimate consideration that I can weigh. Going further to try to single this out as an example of where the garage is going to dominate the house because the ridge is higher and they can't find that anywhere else in the neighborhood. I'm sorry, that's just a step too far. The house that's there looks like there's been work done on it over the years. There's new foundation, at least part of it. It looks like all the windows and doors are there. You know, I don't see us punishing someone for wanting to leave that house and work with it and add space over the garage. That's why I personally feel about it. I don't think that's the right thing for us to be doing with respect to some of the movement the town is trying to make on attainable or affordable or any kind of workforce housing under any kinds of circumstances. So I try to keep all that in mind. I just don't think, I think if there's time to sit down with the neighbors and try to hash through these things, a lot of the concerns I felt that I heard, I'm not denigrating the neighbors at all, but I think that they felt like they got this at the last minute and couldn't wrap their minds around it, and they're very concerned about their property values. And I appreciate that. I don't think ultimately what's being proposed or some variation of it is going to significantly impact any of those neighbors. But if they have time to have discussions, if we want to give them, that's fine with me. I think that's enough said. Thanks.
Janie?
I was hoping you weren't going to come to me next. Yeah, I agree with both of my colleagues. I lean more towards Randy's comments, though, with it looking like, just the size of it. I know so I was wondering if the comment about the garage being subordinate, it is, as I recall, set farther back than the house, right? So even though it's taller, from the street, it will not look as tall because it's not only set back, but it's on a slope. So that could help a little bit with the, and then losing the cupola could maybe help with that subordination issue. But, I hear what Mr. Veach is saying, and I don't disagree with several of the comments. I'm concerned that the neighbors are very vocal about more vocal about not having the adequate knowledge and preparation than necessarily a disagreement with what's being proposed. So I would like to see potentially there be just more time to absorb that. But at the end of the day, two things I'm struggling with. The property is only a half an acre. So to have two small homes or structures on it that look like they could be, it's a very attractive proposal, the garage. So attractive that it does look like a little home. And so I don't know that half an acre feels like that's enough space to have that. But Mr. Brody, you brought up a great point that 40% of the houses in that neighborhood have some type of two structure. Maybe it's the issue of subordinate larger. I'm not sure, but overall, I think the size of it, vis-a-vis the size of the home, is what is really creating the conflict for me. But I go back to my very first question. The change of the footprint of the garage is 60 square feet. That's it.
Yes, because we lost in the front corner to allow for a bigger egress to the backyard, and we added to the back. And to give the front dimension so it wasn't a 20-foot wide building. The garage door is set in a area 14 feet wide. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Usually people are trying to make things look more like a home and less like a garage, i.e. putting garage doors on the side and having access from the side. Unfortunately, we can't do this. Mm-hmm. Is there a suggestion to make this look more of a garage and less attractive to satisfy the board?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not. I think the rendering is very attractive, but I just. I'm trying to reconcile all these comments, here at the moment. But no, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know if others feel how they feel about that. So anyway, I think 60 square feet is not a big change. It's not as big of a change as maybe it's appearing in these renderings, 2 stories, the dormers. Perhaps if there's been significant concern that's been raised by a board member and we still have more board members to hear from, and certainly the neighbors, that if there could be some consideration to come back with a landscape plan and consideration to lowering it in some way, I think that would be appreciated.
So in regards to just a landscape plan and what Mr. Veach had said, I would just request some clarity on the purview of this application and the related landscape. Are we talking a perimeter of 10 feet around the proposed structure? Are we talking plants in the opposite side of the house? And I ask this to mitigate costs for my customer. An intensive, and we don't even know without approval if a potential pool would come. So it seems like doing good work after bad, not understanding, you know, if you told me, you know, we would like to see the plantings in a 10-foot perimeter of the house, I'm happy to do that. You know, the rest, I really can't speak to because I don't know the results of this, and there's too many variables, too many unknowns to commit to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I wasn't talking about a landscape plan, for example, by a landscape architect with, I think it was in trying to help the concern expressed by the neighbors that they're losing their privacy. So what's staying, what's going, not new things you need to
Sure.
introduce, but
And
more of what's not gonna go away.
we've walked the property and I marked the 6 to 7 trees that would potentially come down. The one really pertaining to this is clearly marked
the
and
one,
it's
yeah.
essentially on
Yeah.
top of it. So I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to
No,
understand what I
well,
can bring back to you to provide that clarity.
Well, maybe the rest of my colleagues have more clarity. I think Mr. Veach brings up a good point. The vegetation is really not our purview, but it was more about the, trying to find some common ground with the neighbors was why I was echoing what Mr. Semple said.
Yeah.
It-
If I might, I'm trying to answer your question. You know, plans, you know, when people say, well, what should we do, what shouldn't we do? Really, the landscape isn't something we're worried about. It's the neighbors.
Yep.
And it's really working with them. Because what I hear and what I'm concerned about are the structures. That's what I'm concerned about. So the landscape, to me, so you could do what you want, but you need to talk to the neighbors, find out what they specifically want, and then you talk to your client, and you might say, forget it.
Like I said, we've walked it,
Yeah.
I've walked it twice, I've marked it. I mean, besides, you know, physically shaking the tree saying this is the one that's getting cut down, I really can't articulate it anymore.
It's sort of beyond us, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay? Lee?
Okay, well, I definitely share others' concerns regarding the neighbors and their ability to kind of understand exactly what's going on in this project. What would be helpful to me regarding the size of the garage, I agree with Jenny, I think it is very attractive. I would perhaps lose the cupola, because I do think
I agree totally.
that would help a lot.
Yep.
In terms of its being bigger, looking bigger than the main house. But it would also be helpful to see the two together, to see the main house and the garage in a drawing. But I think it's very attractive. I think if you do, or if the owners do end up putting a pool in, I think it will be a great addition to the pool, having the bathroom and the wet bar.
And that's part of the idea, to keep people out of your house.
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand the big picture plan, I believe. And I think the fact that it doesn't look like a garage is a benefit. So, those are my thoughts.
Paul?
I think I'll stick with the comments that I made initially.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, to me, when I look at this plan and I look at the specifics of what it is and what it could be, you know, Dave was talking about, you know, in the future, a lot of the future, this and that, and I think, well, I like to visualize what a particular structure could become. And that's where I'm going to give my comments on, okay? When I look at it with this plan, which is very attractive, as pointed out, it's almost right next to, it is next to the house. So having two structures that close,
That's the side elevation.
okay, but it still is, yeah, no, the other one. Right. When I think about it, you know, this lot is what, 17,000 odd square feet? Is that right?
19,
when I look at the drawings and the kitchen and the bathrooms and all that kind of stuff, what's my worry is that this is just circumventing a guest house. And this would in no way qualify for a guest house, because number one, you'd need 40,000 square feet, not 17,000. The things in it could easily be, for instance, the kitchen doesn't have an oven. Well, that doesn't take much to throw one in. Not you, but the person a year from now or 2 years from now. Bingo, there it is. And as far as the sleeping goes, you know, to me, it's looking like circumventing the criteria for a guest house because of the things that I see in the plan and what I can imagine could easily happen down the street. And that is my objection, along with what Randy was talking about, having two structures that can be used for, well, all part of the living. It's all, these are all living structures, aren't they? I hear what Dave says, but this to me is nothing that I think of in the way of generating housing for our big problem, you know, workforce housing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying, I don't go down that street.
And that wasn't an intent
No,
at all.
you never said that.
Yeah, that's never been on the
that was-
table. These people want their privacy.
It was just
I take full responsibility for any.
something Mr. Veach said, that's right.
Yeah.
He wanted to plant the seed, and that's okay.
Just saying, you know.
So, I just can't see approving something that I think is going to become something that should never be there with minimal effort. And that's where I stand. So, we can go further than this if you'd like, or you can withdraw without, prejudice if you wanted to. You could ask for continuation if you wanted.
Well, so size and scope have been, or size of property has been talked immensely. And we vetted all these ideas to get during this process. I have a proposed design, front elevation, that is 3 feet shorter in height. It doesn't change the square footage, it doesn't change the space, it changes the appearance from the street. We've selected the one that we presented because we thought it was more attractive and appealing. And it's really just a fake ridge with space for an attic window on the one we presented. Is that leaning in the direction of the board to?
Can't answer the question. Why? Because we don't have the facts and the specifics and the drawings in front of us. We don't have what the new ceiling height's going to be and everything else. So asking a question like that, if we answered it, it would be extremely misleading. And that's why we wouldn't do it. And not to make your job more difficult. That is not what we want to do. We want to get to something that a neighborhood says, hey, this is a real plus. And your client says, this is great. It makes what we want to do. So I hate to be difficult, but
Oh, no,
we can't do what you want us to do. You'd have to submit a whole new plan, and we would have to look at it and say, well, gee, it's 3 feet short here, but we don't like what this is and that. So going back, you have 3 choices. We can take a vote. You can ask for a continuance, not that you necessarily get it, or you can ask for a withdrawal without prejudice, and then you would come back with something else. If we took a vote and you had 2 no's, sounds like you might, you couldn't come back for a couple of years.
Can I continue and submit modified plans?
That is a possibility, but there's no guarantee you would get, again, 4 votes for a continuance.
It's like The Price is Right.
So would you like my recommendation?
Sure.
All right, you ask for a withdrawal without prejudice, and when you're ready, you come back and see Sarah and Jay, and here it is. This is what we've decided we're going to try this time. That's my suggestion. The other two alternatives, you can do too.
Just so, and excuse me, I've never gone down this road, for a continuance, if I ask for a continuance, that is to try to iron out some of the differences with the neighbors and come back with the same plan.
Not necessarily the same plan, you can come back with another plan. It's just coming back, you know, tweaked it here, you tweaked it there, you, whatever it is.
Sure.
And, yeah, you could have worked out some things with neighbors, sure, but.
Let's go that road.
All right, so you're asking officially for?
continuance.
Continuance, all right. So I'm gonna see how everybody feels about that. Ginny?
Okay, I don't think that's a good decision, but okay. Is that what you're asking me?
Well, I'm saying, how would you vote if you were
Oh,
voting?
I'm sorry.
You gonna vote yes or no? I mean, if you were going to vote.
Currently, I would vote no.
All right, Lee,
I would vote yes.
Paul,
I would vote yes.
Randy,
No.
Dave?
I would vote yes for a continuance, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also vote no. I think there's just too much to do. The trouble with continuances is that they tend to be too soon, you know? Like you could say, if we voted to give you a continuance, Sarah would say, well, geez, the first time we can put you on is Christmas Eve, okay? And that might not work. It just might not work for everybody involved. So by asking for a withdrawal, you can come back when you're ready. And then you go in line. You've got to go in the queue when you come back. But there's a small financial drawback because you've got to pay the money again.
Sure.
But I don't think that's going to
No.
kill the deal. So we'll take a vote, but I think you heard you'd lose.
So let's go with the withdrawal.
That's an excellent suggestion, Larry. Okay, why don't you make a motion, Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested withdrawal without prejudice.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we'll take a vote on that. Lee?
I vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
Okay. We will see you again, Larry.
Oh, you will. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
All
the
right.
time.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, or whatever you want to call it. Good, here you go. Okay. You have to leave? Okay.
You're on it.
Okay. Oh, we've got a new assistant. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So, Sarah, let's see, let me look at my big list here. Whoop. I believe we're gone on to 23-084, please.
Application number 23-084, David G. and Elizabeth G. Ranke, care of Rob D'Ambroso, 15 Caswell Lane, Plymouth, Mass. 02360. Owners of property located at 57 Diane Drive, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 6C, Block 66, Lot G119. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming accessory structure on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing garage and the construction of a new garage with living space above. The existing garage is non-conforming in that it is located entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District, floodplain elevation 11. The proposed garage with habitable space will be non-conforming in that it will be located entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District where a 50-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,788 square feet, 158.1%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,896 square feet, 167.6%, or 15%, but not more than 28%. 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 1,131 square feet of buildable upland and contains 14,200 square feet of land area, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protected Bylaw.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, everyone, for making time. For the record, Rob D'Ambroso, D'Ambroso Law in Plymouth. And I am here on behalf of the Renkes who are in the audience, Dave and Liz Renke. They're 22-year residents of the town of Chatham, and they are year-round residents. They have a proposal which, if you may remember, I think everyone on this board was here back in April when they last appeared. They came forth in April and proposed something that was not completely dissimilar from the last project. I hate to say it, given the reception, but it's to build a bedroom above their garage. So they have an existing garage next to their house. It's a much smaller structure. It's going to remain much smaller than the house, but they want to put a living space above it. In April, they didn't have the benefit of legal counsel, so they retained me. They withdrew their application. Now we're back, and they've also made an adjustment to the plan that I think will please this board. So again, I won't give you chapter and verse on this one in terms of Section 5B of your protective bylaw, unless you'd like me to. I think you're familiar with it. We got a pretty thorough kind of presentation by Larry. I think that was his name, the builder who made the previous presentation. But suffice to say, you know, we take the position that although the existing structure and the lot are non-conforming, this is not a substantive change in use, and the project's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. You know, the first one is simple. The use isn't changing. You know, it's a single-family residence on the lot right now. It's going to remain that way. The character and the use of the property are not changing. In terms of whether or not it will be more detrimental, again, there's a very minor increase in footprint, I think 92 square feet, but you know, we don't see it as detrimental to the neighborhood. It's going to be an appealing, tasteful build when it's done. We've got our builder here. You've seen the plans. I think it hopefully would improve values in the neighborhood, if nothing else. And I think most importantly, the proof is in the pudding when we say it's not more detrimental. We've got, I'd like to call it universal neighbor support, and I'll speak to that. You know, and again, I think in distinction to the last matter, again, not to denigrate anyone involved, but, you know, there was substantial abutter outreach here. You know, I think partly was facilitated by the Renkes being longtime year-round residents. They know all their neighbors. They've communicated with them, and we're also here for the second time 6 months later. So, you know, everyone had knowledge of this back in April, and they've been well in the loop. We got a bunch of letters of support last time, and we have letters again this time. So, you know, again, I think that in that respect, you know, it's hard to say that it's detrimental if the neighbors all seem to like it, and of course, they like the Renkies. A couple points, again, rather than rehash and run through all the criteria in your protective bylaw, I'd like to focus on what I think were the two questions that this board had at the last hearing, and why I think that we've addressed them, or they're perhaps misguided respectfully to some degree. One of the queries at the last hearing in April was, why isn't this a dwelling unit? Now, again, maybe in the intervening 6 months, you've had a bunch more of projects like this. I think Mr. Briggs here tried to explain it at the last hearing, but again, just for the record, a dwelling unit, this is a definition in your bylaw, means one or more rooms designed to be used as separate living quarters with cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities for one family. There will be no cooking facility in this structure. One of the changes that was made, the most significant change to the plan that was presented to you last time, was the elimination of a wet bar. I think that certain members of the board, or perhaps the board as a whole, queried whether, look, this living room that you show on the plans, is it really a kitchen? Certainly our position was no, or my client's position at the time was no. But again, to reduce that perception, and to reduce, frankly, any risk that it could be used as a kitchen, that's been eliminated. So you've got, a living area, a sleeping area, and a bathroom, effectively. And this is, again, on the second floor above a garage. One change that we considered, and again, I think would have made some of this academic, was to combine the two structures. Then I don't think we would have the question of, well, do you have an illicit dwelling unit, a second dwelling unit on the property? It wasn't feasible. Mike Martin, our builder, can speak to it, but essentially, given the configuration of the existing house, which is a little quirky, you really couldn't connect the two houses. The two structures. You couldn't connect the garage with the existing structure the way they were configured, and you couldn't have living space on the first floor of the garage structure that's proposed to be reconstructed due to the fact that we're in a flood overlay. So it really wasn't tenable to just add a bedroom effectively to the existing house. In terms of positive developments since last time, we've since been to the Board of Health. Board of Health has given approval. I included a letter, an email from your Board of Health official, Lucas Amato, indicating that the existing septic is suitable, and there's no required upgrade to the septic, so we've passed muster. This plan has passed muster with the Board of Health, and my client's also been before the Conservation Commission and gotten the stamp of approval from Conservation. So, between those two additional positive developments and the elimination of the wet bar, and hopefully my presentation, we can persuade you that this is a well-founded project. The other thing I'd like to speak to, and I think it came up in the last presentation, is the concern, which I appreciate, that, well, what prevents someone from using living space as a dwelling unit? I think first and foremost, and again, I know we can't talk about future owners because the future's uncertain, but the Renkies are longtime residents, and the reason that they're doing this project is they've got a large and growing family. They just had another grandchild within the last couple weeks. And when their children and grandchildren come to visit, they are a bit cramped in their house. So the game plan is, this is not planned to be a rental. It's not an Airbnb. It's not a dwelling, certainly. This would be when the kids come to visit, give them their space, let them stay in the house, and Liz and Dave will go in the room above the garage, and they're happy sleeping there, and they'll come down for breakfast in the house and join their family. So that's the reason for the project, just, to get that out there. Again, in terms of the concern expressed about, well, what happens if someone tries to put a kitchen in this unit? I guess what I would say is it's illegal. We can't prevent a future owner from doing something illegal. It's impossible, obviously, right? So, to hold the Renkies, longtime law-abiding citizens, to a standard of controlling a future potential bad actor, I just don't think is fair or reasonable. You have your bylaw as it's written. Again, they intend to comply with it. The plans comply with it. It's not a dwelling unit. And I think that's really all we could say. Again, I made an analogy which, I hope didn't come off poorly in my memo, but it would be almost similar to Mr. Briggs saying, I'm not going to give someone a building permit for a single-family house on a residential zone lot, a vacant lot, let's say, because I'm concerned that they may turn that into a commercial establishment. Maybe it becomes retail in 10 years. Maybe it becomes a cannabis dispensary. I mean, that's sort of that tortured line of reasoning, I think, when you start to hypothesize about a future improper use. You know, there's just, again, it's an impossible standard for anyone to meet. So I respectfully ask you to consider that when you go down, if you go down that line of reasoning. Again, in terms of how this differs from the last project, not to harp on it, but since I sat through it, figured I'd comment on it. The reconstructed garage is significantly smaller than the dwelling, than the house. The footprint is increasing, again, only a little bit. There are no trees being cut. Again, I know that's not squarely germane to the protective bylaw, but, you know, no changes to the streetscape or the landscape, I should say. And again, I think the biggest thing we have going for us is we've got full support of the neighbors. So, Sarah, would you kindly put up that GIS screen grab? Yeah, so there it is. So I created this. You can see I'm very skilled with the software. All of the red boxes you've received letters of support from, which again is virtually every abutter. And the one in the top right corner, that large lot, I don't have my glasses, 58, we understand they've submitted a letter, but it may not have reached you. So again, I know you can't really consider that, but I can tell you that to my knowledge, they are in support as well. So again, it's going to be a nice looking structure. It's going to give the Renkies some flexibility in terms of their living arrangement when family visits. It's not going to be a dwelling unit. There's not going to be a kitchen. The neighbors are good with it, and we don't think it's detrimental. We're happy to field any questions, and we appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate to us you'd like to join the meeting.
There's no one to speak in favor.
Okay, I'll read the correspondence. First of all, this is from the Board of Health, Judith Giorgio. She writes on October 11th, I have reviewed the plan to add a one-bedroom garage. The property was approved for 4 bedrooms when the Title V septic system was installed in 1998. The 4th bedroom counted was in the basement of the main house. A site visit by the health inspector confirmed the basement bedroom. The room, however, does not meet our current bedroom requirements, but since it was approved as a bedroom when the system was installed, we have approved the current plan to relocate the bedroom to the garage/guest house, maintaining the 4 bedrooms. We will require a deed restriction on the property. The deed restriction will limit any future bedrooms when sewer is available. Prior to the BOH nitrogen loading regulation change in August, restricting bedroom additions, we may have allowed a 5th bedroom here with an IA. This is now not allowed. Then we have a note from Crystal Keon, Conservation Commission Administrative Assistant. She writes on September 25th, the Conservation Commission held a public hearing on August 23rd to hear the proposed project. The project as proposed was conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act, the town of local wetland bylaw, Chapter 272, and regulations promulgated thereunder, and issued a -2 determination of applicability. Then we have a note. This is from Valerie LaBelle, and she's writing for Janet LaBelle. 58 Diane Drive, date October 11th. Please allow this letter to serve as our support. A copy of the plans has been shared with us, and we have no objection. We're familiar with the siting, location, and sign. Feel it would be an enhancement to our neighborhood and its aesthetic. Then we have an email. This is from Salvatore Colozzi. It was received on October 11th. I own the property at 33 Diane. We are next to the Renke property. We have no objection to the construction of a new garage. Carrie and Maureen Stanton, 75 Diane Drive, on October 1st. Please allow this letter to serve as enthusiastic support. Copy of the plans has been shared. We're familiar with it and so forth. Then we have a note. Well, this might be.
No, that's
Yeah, that.
Oh, my memo? Yep. You don't need to read into the record unless you'd like to.
I wouldn't, and thank you very much. But thank you for the offer. Okay. Do we need this? No. This is from Lucas Amato.
Yep, so that's the health agent's email.
Okay. Now we have an email from Stephen Schneider. As a Diane Drive neighbor, I'd like to comment on the new construction, review the plans, feel it's important that only positive changes happen in the neighborhood. The replacement of somewhat old, poorly constructed garage with a well-designed one that improves the look of the neighborhood without very significantly increasing the ground cover is something I strongly support. 97 Diane. And now we have Jane and Andrew Abu, 49 Patterson Road. They write on October 9th. Purpose of the letter is to share our unwavering support. Andrew and I have reviewed the plans and agreed that the rebuild will enhance the property. We implicitly trust Dave and Liz to execute this building project, adhering to all town rules and regs while being sensitive to the needs of our beloved neighborhood. Then we have a letter. This is from Mike and Marcy Farmer, and they're at 32 Nantucket Drive. It was received on October 5th. My wife, Marcy, and I live in the same neighborhood. We wanted to put forth our full-throated support for their carriage house project. Dave has been a past president of our Buck Creek Neighborhood Association. He and Liz have been terrific neighbors, providing assistance to their neighbors year after year. The project is a dream of theirs, which would allow more room for his expanding family and consistent with the overall look of the neighborhood. We urge approval. There's a handwritten note from Robert and Mary Ann Fitzpatrick on September 8th. Please accept this letter as our approval of the planned garage replacement project at 57 Diane. And we have an email. This is from Kevin and Nicole McLaughlin, 34 Diane. On September 28th, they give enthusiastic support for the garage/carriage house request. Copy of the plans should share with us and so forth. Then we have Donna and Gwen Crowther, 14 Diane Drive on September 25th. We're happy to support the application for a special permit. They have shared their plans and so forth. We hope the board sees this as a positive change to the neighborhood. And then on September 27th, Joanne and John Conroy, 39 Diane, right? We support the garage carriage house request. We've reviewed them and all that kind of stuff. Okay, then we have Jason and Laurie Fromer, 22 Diane, who write on September 27th. We are writing to express our overwhelming support. They're wonderful members of our association and so forth. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting right now.
There is no one on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak.
Okay, questions from the board. Dave?
I have no questions, Dave.
You used up all your words?
I used up, I'm all used up.
Ginny's got a few left, maybe.
I do.
All right.
My first question, I think I heard you say that the footprint was small, 92 square feet. I think that's what you
Of
said.
increase, yes.
Okay, I calculated 108 square feet.
Of increase?
Yep, in the footprint.
Well, if I were better at math, I probably wouldn't be a lawyer. So I'll defer to you on that until I can rerun the
Okay,
calculation.
I just want, I mean, it's important from the concept of, expansion, right?
Right.
And, I mean, as you mentioned in the beginning of your opening, that we just heard a previous, and theirs was even smaller than that, it was 60. So I just wanted to make sure that I had for the record what I think it is, based on what you've provided. Okay, that's number one. Number two, so I was curious to know why there were 3 different site plans from 3 different organizations, 3 different dates. It could be that one's for the building permit and one's for septic and one's for, but the reason I'm bringing it up, I mean, it is confusing, but number 2, they have inconsistencies in them. So for example, all 3 of them say that the maximum building coverage is 10%, which it isn't, it's 15. I mean, that's to your disadvantage to have it say that. Two of the three say that building coverage is 13.4%, and one says lot coverage is 13.4%. So it just, the combination of all that information and then having these inconsistencies made it just more, oh, and there's one more. The southern lot line, or the southern line to the lot, two of them say it's 170.65 feet, and then one of them says 168. These aren't big deal things, but I'm just saying the totality of just one thing after another, so my question is there a reason that there are three of them? Or am I looking at the right one?
Well, you know, if I could see the ones you're directing, you know, I do see some septic modification plans. The one that I've relied upon is the one that has, it shows the, I don't know, Sarah, it shows the AE zone line. Mine's colorized, maybe yours
To
isn't.
make it a little easier for
Yeah.
one of them is SPINK,
Yep. So-
one of them is RAS, and one of them is ROUX.
Yeah, so the RAS plan, in my mind, is the definitive plan, and I apologize for any inconsistency.
All right. All right, so you think that's the definitive plan? All right, well, I was looking mostly at the SPINK plan, but that's fine. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted to.
Yeah, Spink was septic, yeah, so the layout
Okay.
plan is the RAS. I'm sorry if that was unclear.
Okay, no, it just, with respect to coverage in particular, it was confusing. Okay, so those were my questions.
Lee?
No questions right now, thank you.
Paul?
I have no questions.
Randy?
Thank you for your presentation, council. The living space in the house versus the living space of the carriage house, can you tell us those two numbers? I tried to find it on here, and I don't know if it.
Yeah, it's a good and fair question. Do you guys have that offhand, Mike? Let me, because I could fumble for it and try to figure it out.
I think 752 is the square footage
Oh,
of
yeah.
over the garage.
And 1688 for the house. Those are my notes. Oh,
If David's gonna speak, yes.
okay, yeah. So I'm sorry. I'll speak, and if I misspeak, you know, David, my client, can take the mic. So my notes indicate 1,688 square feet of living space in the house, 752 square feet of living space in the garage.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
My question is, I think, simple. The couple of times I've been by, it doesn't appear that the garage is used as a garage. You've got all kinds of stuff in there. And so, is that on purpose, that it's really your storage area and your workshop, and that's really what that is?
You want to go up to the mic?
You'd have to go up to the mic.
Dave, yeah.
We have virtually no storage space in our existing house. There's a crawl space underneath. That basement room that was considered a bedroom slash living area is a storage area as well. It has clothes in it. It has my fishing gear boxes in it. The garage has a lot of my tools because I'm a handyman and I do a lot of remodeling type work on the inside of my house. And I've accumulated 2 houses worth of tools over 25 years when we had our main house in Norton and we were living in the summers and on weekends at the Cape. So I started buying 2 of everything because inevitably what I was looking for on the Cape was in Norton, and what I was looking for in Norton was down the Cape. And I haven't efficiently reduced the size of the number of things that I have. But if you were to go in my garage, you would find a little bit of everything, which is why, consistent with my other houses, I've never been able to put 1 car in. The plan with the addition is a more efficient storage system for my gear on the sides of the garage and the ability to at least get my wife's car in there during the winter time, if not my truck as well. But it's it'll be a challenge.
I think your wife would appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, will you let us know when you have the garage sale, when you sell off all the dupes of everything? No, and I ask that question because sometimes that happens with me. All of a sudden, there's 5 or 6 vehicles hanging around the house, and most of them belong to me, so I can't say any more than that. Okay. Okay. Paul,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
we need a vote? Lee?
I vote yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Lee?
Well, my feelings on this project is that I completely understand why the owners would like to have a getaway area, bedroom, when their family takes over the rest of the house. I do understand that it's in the flood zone. The garage is already in the flood zone. I see that there are flood vents incorporated. I think what makes this one a little bit different from the case before is there's some space here. And I think this is a good project. I'm okay with it, and I would be voting in favor.
Paul?
Yes, we had an extensive discussion of this back in April, and there was a lot of different views as to what was significant. It seemed to me that a lot of the opposition was based on the fact that the property could be abused once it is renovated. And I don't think that that's a legitimate concern on our part. I think we can't presume that the law is going to be broken, and on the basis of that, deny the application. So I understand it's possible, as it would be in the other one, that we did today, to put in a stove plug it in and say, bingo, we have a kitchen. But I don't think that you can presume that that kind of thing is going to happen when you're sitting on the board to approve. So I would continue to support the application. I think it's appropriate, and it has neighborhood support, and it's not substantially more detrimental.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think legally speaking, that the applicants have been able to comply with the law. It's a little tricky with now that's a bedroom, now that's not a bedroom, but, you know, the law says now that it's not in the house, and so this can be. It's a little troubling, the journey that it took. It's also a little troubling how close it is to another house on the lot. It's in a flood zone, but legally speaking, and I'm an attorney, you know, it meets the definition. So I'm not gonna vote against it, but I do think it's detrimental to the neighborhood. I don't think it's substantially detrimental. I think it's detrimental because we're putting a larger structure in a flood zone when renovations is always an opportunity to improve the environment. And I think a lot of people are moving to Cape Cod to their smaller houses and then trying to max them out. And that's not always the best thing for the environment. So I'm just gonna state that, but I'm not gonna vote against it. Because I do see that the footprint increase is minimal. If it was larger, I probably wouldn't support it. And they did take out the wet bar, which is important. So somewhat reluctantly, I'll probably support it.
Well, I was in favor of this the last time, and I'm still in favor of it. I agree with Paul and Lee and Randy. I think that I watched the tape from April, and I was a little concerned about some of what was being expressed about possible, you know, things that could go wrong down the road, and so I'm happy to see the changes. I think the neighborhood has spoken up quite quite a bit in favor of this. And, you know, I think that, so it is a floodplain, but we'll bear in mind that the actually, you know, the garage is a use that's allowed in the, as in the floodplain, and so this is kind of taking advantage of the fact they couldn't put actually, I guess it sounds like they're moving a bedroom from the first floor of the house, which is in the flood zone, probably, and they're actually moving it above the garage, which meets the requirements of the floodplain, so I think that's an improvement in that respect. Yes, it's a somewhat larger structure than it is now, but it conforms to the new floodplain regulations and everything else. So I certainly don't see this as substantially more detrimental. I think it's a good project, and I enthusiastically support it.
Jeannie?
So last time I was on the fence with it, and this time I actually am not in favor of it. I'm not voting today, but I feel as though, a couple things. You have even less lot area than the one that we just heard. You have 1/3 of an acre. The comments that we made previously about the look of two houses on the lot is applicable here, and I believe, and your footprint is larger, one is 108. So you're going up, you're going out, and you really don't have the lot for it. And I have to say, I agree with the sentiment that, you know, that you could be approving something that could be circumventing a future problem. That was my concern last time, and that still remains.
Well, I'm very glad that the wet bar has been removed, because that helps me. It's, you know, what Paul was talking about. To me, it's not that I think somebody is going to do something illegal. What I think is sort of taking the temptation away, you know. It's, you know, the more, like the last one we had, I mean, that was there. That was real temptation. This is not. And I guess I side with Randy. Is it detrimental to the neighborhood? In some ways, yes, but is it substantially detrimental? No. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I assume we would want our standard conditions on this.
I think so.
So I'm going to say I'll approve, move approval with the condition that all construction activity be contained on-site and construction vehicles be contained on-site or off-site with the permission of the property owner, that between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed, no work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, I need a vote on that. Lee?
I vote yes.
Paul?
All vote yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Okay. 23-085, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-085, 486 Shore Road LLC, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 486 Shore Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16F, Block 15, Lot A7. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and swimming pool, and the removal of an exterior mechanical system appliance, pool equipment, and the construction of a new dwelling and the installation of an exterior mechanical system appliance, AC condenser, and generator. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that it is located 30.6 feet from the road, 20.7 feet from the northerly abutter, and 19.7 feet from the southerly abutter. The existing mechanical unit is non-conforming in that it is located 16.9 feet from the northerly abutter,
What'd you say?
The proposed dwelling will be non-conforming in that it will be located 26.8 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required, 20.1 feet from the northerly abutter,
I'll see you at 3 o'clock on Thursday. Okay.
and 20.1 feet from the southerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed exterior mechanical system appliance will be non-conforming in that it will be located 16 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. Also proposed is the installation of a conforming swimming pool. The existing building coverage is 2,918 square feet, 15.9%, and the proposed building coverage is 3,155 square feet, 17.2%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 18,321 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 31,950 square feet of land area where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Good afternoon, or good evening. Isn't it wonderful how I can clear out a room?
You have a magic touch, and I'm glad to see you brought the varsity with you today. Welcome, Karen.
Good afternoon. So Bill Riley on behalf of 46 Shore Road LLC. That's owned by William Lynn and Mary Murphy. Mary is here today with us. Karen's our architect, Dave Clark's our engineer, and Teresa Sprague is our plant mitigation specialist who's online. So what we'd like to do first, to introduce everybody to the neighborhood, because like nobody knows Shore Road. But anyway, we have that drone video. Sarah, if you could show that. And it goes 3 minutes. I think you could stop after 2, but, well, it just goes on and, back and forth, so it's up to you. You tell them when to stop, Dave. So there's the house with the green and yeah, that one. That's the existing house. I was talking to the people who own the house next door. They said, "Oh, they're gonna work on that little thing?" So I asked the guy doing the drone thing to show the houses across the road as well, because there's some pretty substantial homes over there as well. This house with the big cathedral window in the gable end facing the street, by my calculations, I think that had the largest gross floor area in the neighborhood.
Okay, enough already.
Well, you have to go back to the beginning.
We want to see the 3D presentation of the house that is proposed.
Well, we're happy to do that, but Karen wanted to do a little presentation first.
Fine?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm Karen Kempton, architect for Bill Lynn and Mary Murphy. Mary is in the audience with us. If you could bring up the front elevation photo I sent you the other day, existing.
Making Sarah work today.
Yes. So when I first met with Bill and Mary, we discussed the pros and cons of renovating the existing building or building new. And the existing ceilings on the first floor are 7 feet 6 inches high. Bill is quite tall. And there are some 2-story vaulted spaces on the water side of the house, which eliminate the ability to have views on the second floor from bedrooms. There are also low ceilings in the basement, which would not comfortably allow for additional living space below grade. We can show the existing rear elevation. The other issue is that the existing pool is only 3 feet from the back wall of the house, creating a dangerous pathway between the house and the pool, especially when those casement windows are open. You can see in the photo, they're not open all the way. The house was built in 1987, and it was not built to meet today's high wind design standards for structural support during a hurricane or nor'easter. This is especially concerning at that two-story glass wall on the water side, nor does the house meet today's stricter energy codes. So the decision was to build new and keep the square footage similar to the existing. So to that end, if we compare the finished square foot numbers on the first floor, the existing is 2,380 square feet. The proposed is 2,324 square feet, which is 55 square feet smaller than the existing. The proposed second floor is 2,733 square feet. And although the existing is 1,470 square feet, if we include that vaulted space that you can see with the large glass windows as second floor space, it would actually be 2,780 square feet. This is without changing the exterior massing of the house. So again, it would be larger than what is proposed by 50 square feet. Although the existing basement is unfinished, the proposed shows 1,842 square feet of finished basement space. This area is fully below grade and does not affect the exterior massing of the structure as a full walkout would. If we can go to number 3, which is the front of the model. Okay. So we've also maintained that the existing top of foundation elevation and the first floor elevation is the same as the existing. By using a gambrel roof design, the ridge is under the maximum allowed building height by 2 feet. The new ridge is also the same height as the existing ridge, actually 1 inch less. We think that the gambrel is an attractive look that blends in with some of the larger homes on Shore Road that you saw in the drone, but we can flip through some of them here as well. The next one is the abutter to the south. That one, Gray Ghost, a very large gambrel. The next one is 448 Shore Road, 2 houses down. The next one is 15 Barcliff, next house down. And the final one is 469 Shore Road, which is the house diagonally across the street. If we can go to the site plan now. The house is only 24 feet wide at both ends, and the idea is to keep the house narrow so that the pool could be relocated out of the 50-foot setback from the top of bank. We also wanted additional space between the pool and the house, so we have 8 feet at the closest points and 10 feet at the entry point to the patio. So on the site plan, keep in mind that that bold outline that you see next to the pool is the roof overhang, and because it's wider than 2 feet, we have to show it as building coverage. But the actual back wall of the house is that dashed lighter black line, which is shown inside the red line of the existing house. The front entry of the house is 68 feet back from Shore Road. This is again that dashed line set back from the bold line, which is the covered front porch. We flipped the layout of the house so that the garage is on the north side rather than the south side shown in red. So you can see where it says slab, that's the new garage. If you look south of that, you can see the outline of the existing garage in red, and they're kind of in the same plane. Similarly, the rear extension is at the rear of the house on the north side rather than the existing south side in red. So again, you can see our bump out on the rear north side, and if you go down, you can see the existing bump out in red that's sort of over where the existing proposed pool is, right? This allows for more light into the house and in the outside pool and patio area. By flipping the house, we also have room for the new septic system, which has to be a minimum of 20 feet from habitable space and a minimum of 10 feet from a garage. This layout pushed the house and garage closer to Shore Road by 30 inches. Again, I'm referring to where it says 28.1, which is the corner board. Where it says 26.8 is actually a bay on the second floor. But because it's living space, they're using that as the dimension line. But visually, I would go with the 28.1, which is the corner board of the garage, pretty much in line with where the existing garage is on the south side. Because of these accommodations, the pool location out of the 50-foot setback to the top of bank, a wider, safer patio space, and septic setback regulations, we have ended up with a house that is only 24-foot wide rather than the 32-foot wide house that's there presently. Although the coverage numbers show an increase of coverage by 237 square feet, a large portion of this is the roof overhang, which we have to count in building coverage. But we think it's important to have this roof overhang as it breaks up the two-story element of the rear. If you can go to the rear elevation on the model. Yep, there you go. So you can see that roof overhang really helps to break up the two-story rear of the back of the house. It also provides some shadow space for the porch, for the patio. There's a 383 square feet of roof overhang, which is 2% of the building coverage. But we think the additional coverage is beneficial to the design as it softens the two-story walls. This can be seen on the model as we move around the house, if you want to play the model now. So here you can see that the garage doors are turned away from Shore Road. We have a 24-foot wide garage. That L and then the L of the main house is again 24 feet wide. And that ridge, which is setting the gambrel ridge height, which is the same height as the existing house right now. As you come around, you can see that roof overhang, which gives you some nice roof shingles, so it breaks up the rear elevation of the house. As you come away, the model shows the relationship of the house to the entire lot. And the entire lot is 31,950 square feet. The model also shows that the area calculation of the house is only 9.8% building coverage of the entire lot. So it's visually under 10%. That's my presentation. If you have any questions, you can just keep playing the model and you'll see the bird's eye view of the house and the lot together. It's heavily vegetated on the north and south of that existing fence, which are the neighbors' fences. If you've been out there, you can see that. It's big hedges on the left and on the right.
Karen, thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome. And again, this is showing the entire lot down to the water, 31,000 square feet. There would be a lot of mitigation involved, which is what I'm showing in the vegetation at the back of the house that Teresa can speak to if you have questions about that. But that would be removal of all the invasive species and new mitigation planting there. That's a bump out bay on the front that's really being counted as the front dimension setback because it does have living space over that eave line. But for general purposes, I would say the corner board of the house would be the setback, which is 30 inches more than what's there now.
Thank you, Karen. So Dave Clark is here. He's our engineer. If you have any questions regarding the plan itself, Teresa Sprague, who is has designed the mitigation plantings that were shown, is also available through the team's process. One of the things that we've been to the Conservation Commission, and they requested a reduction in the lawn area, which we've accommodated. That expanded the mitigation plantings, because it turns out, I mean, all the plantings on the bank, at least in the immediate vicinity of the top of the bank, are invasive species. And so we're removing all those and planting them with what I always called indignant species. I don't understand why they're so indignant, but there they are. It's just a bad attitude. Anyway, so and another thing to point out, although this is now an R40 zone, previously, I think it was R30. Was that R30, David? Yeah, that was for a little while it was R30, and the sideline setbacks were different. So that's why, the building doesn't meet current R40 setbacks, because it was built at a time when the setbacks were 25 feet, I believe, or maybe 15 feet. Basically, yeah, it must have been 15 feet back then. So that's why the setbacks, although it's now R40, so we're building basically within the footprint of the existing structure. So I think what I'd like to do is run through the criteria. If anybody has any questions for Teresa or David or Karen, we can answer those. So adequacy of the size of the site in terms of the proposed use. So we believe the size of the site is adequate because we are using basically the same footprint. The lot was created, as I said, prior to the change to R40, so all setbacks except for the coastal bank are non-conforming. The increase in the building coverage is only, I got 167 square feet. Is that what you had too? So compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. That's why we had the drone video. So, and we also have, again, based on my math, but the third page has the addresses, and then the middle column's the net area from the assessor's information. And then where I have gross floor area, I've included garages and basement areas, which would not be included in the gross floor area. And so I think our building, as proposed, is 8120. We have, although somebody in the Gray Ghost looks like a really huge building, but it doesn't have the same area that we have. But it's that's 7,343 square feet. But I think that if you look at all the numbers, I think we really fit in the neighborhood in terms of size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. And we can always have the drone repeat, so. The extent of the proposed increase in non-conforming nature of the structure. So the existing building is 30 feet from the road where 40 feet is required. The applicant seeks to move the building so it's 26.8 feet from the street where 40 feet is required. In addition to the decrease in the front setback, there's an increase in the living area, which is considered an intensification of the pre-existing non-conforming residential use. Suitability of the site, including but not limited to impact on neighboring properties or on the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, water bodies, and stormwater runoff. So this is a section that says, what impact is the construction on this property going to have on neighboring properties? And how are we protecting them? So I know you've all been out to the site. The lot itself is very level. And because we believe that the impact from the proposed construction will be very minimal because of that. Although there is a coastal bank and a steep slope to the water, the applicants are confident because the land is so level between the construction site and the top of the bank, they'll be able to contain stormwater runoff in a manner that will prevent siltation of the wetland at the bottom of the slope. The work will also be done under an order of conditions from the Chatham Conservation Commission, which will require the installation of silt fences and straw wattles to ensure that no runoff or siltation will go down the slope. Impact of scale, siting, and mass on the neighborhood visual character. It's really difficult to determine what is the visual character of Shore Road other than big houses. I mean, you look at the Gray Ghost, which is right next door, built back in the 1920s, a full 3-story building. I mean, the thing's enormous. And as you go up and down Shore Road, you have those, and you also have some more modest buildings. I think the way Karen has designed this structure, there's no overwhelming aspect of the structure as you go by that would put it out of character with the other properties in that neighborhood. So and we also think that the existing building was not very attractive. So we think that the new design is going to be an improvement on the streetscape. We think the mass of the building is very similar to the existing structure and very much in keeping with the neighborhood. Which I say is a neighborhood of larger homes. Clearly, we're not impacting views and vistas because all we're doing is building something the same width and height as the existing building. Compatibility of the proposed use with neighboring properties. It's a single-family residence in a single-family neighborhood and will continue to be compatible. Method of sewage disposal, source of water and drainage. So the stormwater drainage is going to be better maintained, better confined than it was in the previous design. We are going to be providing a new septic system, and the source of water is still the public water system. We don't believe there'll be any impact on traffic flow and safety or noise and litter. Adequacy of the utilities and other public services are adequate for single-family use. So that'll be our presentation. Again, we have Teresa's on the phone, and David's here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
There is no one on Microsoft Teams.
Okay, I'll read the correspondence. First, Giorgio, health agent. 1011, I reviewed, demolish and rebuild for this existing 6-bedroom dwelling. The property was approved for 7 bedrooms when the Title V septic system was installed in 1986. The septic system must be relocated to accommodate the renovations and proposed pool. A septic plan and application must be submitted prior to approval for the building permit. Conservation Commission, from Crystal Keon, Administrative Assistant. She writes on October 10th, Conservation Commission will be holding a public hearing on October 25th to issue an order of conditions for the proposed project. The project will then be conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Local Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 272, and regulations promulgated thereunder. Then we have a note. This is from Kevin and Jennifer Gillis, and they're at 439 Shore Road. They write on October 5th, we own the home at 439. We have reviewed the plan for the proposal at 486 and support the requested relief. We believe the home will be an improvement to our neighborhood and will enhance the overall character of the streetscape. We welcome the Lynns to the neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone on Microsoft Teams that wishes to ask a question or speak against this application? If so, indicate you'd like to join us.
There is no one with a question or an opposition.
Okay. Questions from the board? Dave, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Dave.
Okay. Jenny, questions?
I do have some questions. First of all, I want to say it is an absolutely beautiful lot. And Mr. Riley, I agree with you. The Shore Road area has many large and very lovely homes, no doubt about that. Karen, you always do a beautiful job, so the design is very attractive. My concern, or my questions were about the I can't reconcile a couple things that you said, Karen, with respect to the numbers, because when I look at the nonconformities, it looks to me, based on what's in the ad and what I see on the site plan, that it's already a large house on a constrained lot. And the new house, as lovely as the design is increasing every single nonconformity except for one. Building coverage, mechanicals, northern abutter, the road, not by a lot, but, so I'm looking at it thinking, it's already a big house, over coverage, and the house, albeit, you know, modestly larger, it's larger, and I feel like it needs to be, but in several cases you said, well, don't look at the dark line, look at the hash line, but it does look like it's largely in the same footprint, and that's what it is, but all the numbers for the existing house are lower than your numbers. So I just wanted to, and also the square footage, on the ad, it says the gross square footage was 6766, and on your sheet, Mr. Riley, you have the gross floor area as 7,094. Not a big difference, but again, these inconsistencies, I'm not sure what to look at. So can you answer some of those I mean, it wasn't really a question, but it's mostly the discrepancy with some of your numbers vis-a-vis what is showing on the site plan and the ad.
Well, if you look on the site plan to the southern abutter, the existing was 19.7 feet, and we are 20.1 feet, so we are.
That was the one I mentioned, with the exception of one.
Let's see, on the north side, we are 20.7, and that's the existing, and the new is 20.1. We are 30 inches closer to the street, to the corner board, but again, massing-wise, if you're looking at the red outline of the house versus the black, to me, they look very similar. We're just talking 30 inches or so.
Yeah, and I did, in fairness, I was looking at 26.8, which was like 3 feet, and you clarified that that's the bay on the top. I couldn't
Correct.
tell that from this picture, but I understand that.
I think more importantly is on the east side, the water side, really trying to keep the building and the pool out of that 50-foot setback to the top of the bank.
Well, that was actually my other question. The most important setback, in my opinion, is that one. Because while this is a beautiful property and it's a constrained lot, it's importantly on a coastal bank, a very high and east-facing, ocean-facing coastal bank that has had stabilization issues. So,
I'm not aware that it has. I mean, it's had a revetment at the foot of the bank.
I'm not saying this property, I'm saying the whole, not, I'm sorry,
Oh,
not
okay.
486, but I'm saying that whole section of Shore
The
Road.
property's north of 486.
Yes, including the
Oh,
neighbor,
I beg your pardon?
including the neighbor
Yeah,
on
including the neighbor.
498.
They're all post-78 structures, which under the Wetlands Protection Act and the regulations under the Wetlands Protection Act cannot have an engineered coastal structure, i.e. a revetment. So, you know, there are problems to the north of us, but, I mean, our property,
Yeah.
the revetment's been there probably since the 50s.
Well, let me get back to the point about the, no, I understand, and I did not mean that property had an issue. But the ones to the north have, and that's well documented. When you say the 50-foot setback, the house is meeting that, but not the hardscape and the pool, right? Is that what when you say you're meeting the 50-foot, you're within the 50-foot?
Yeah, that's correct, and we've actually had lengthy discussions with the Conservation Commission about that, and the hardscape, as shown on this plan, has been reduced in accordance with the request of the Conservation Commission.
So that's actually another question I have. When I look at this site plan, I see just the very top northeast corner in red, that's the pool.
The existing pool.
Yeah, the existing pool. And your proposed hardscape comes out, that's what's in black. And when you say it's been reduced, I watched the hearings, Mr. Riley, you can't reduce an expansion. I mean, this is definitely an expansion from what was there before. I just mentioned, that's the one setback that concerns me the most. I think the other ones are very nominal, to be honest, but I bring them up in totality because it just shows that it is in combination of all these opportunities to constrain it a little bit. It's not. And that was my concern, but that's why my questions were around.
No, I can understand that if you let numbers lead the way, it's easy to go to a place where, "Gee, I don't understand how you can do this." But if you look, the purpose of the bylaw, I think, is really encapsulated in criteria number 5. You know, what's the visual impact of the scale, siting, and mass of the property and its effect on the neighborhood? That's really what I see as the principal concern of the Zoning Board of Appeals as our criteria were established. I mean, the other things are all important, but I think number 5, at least to me, has always been the most important one. You know, so what's the impact of scale, siting, and mass on the neighborhood?
Yeah.
And we really have to think about the neighborhood. So, it seems to me that if you look at the design, at Karen's design, at the videos, at the buildings that are already there, and can you say, this design, the scale, siting, and mass of this building are substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure? And we think, I know the numbers can sometimes seem overwhelming, but the reality is, what does it look like? And that's why we do the video,
Yeah.
to show you what it's gonna look like.
I totally agree. I have no problem with number 5. But it isn't just the numbers. When I look at the picture, if you could go back to the other site plan, Sarah, this one's good, but it's too busy. When I look at the other picture, the picture tells me too that it is bigger than the existing house. I see the black lines, in many cases, larger than the red lines. And in particular, I'd like for the house to be a little smaller because I'd like for the hardscape to be smaller, because this is not just any house. This is on Shore Road and it's on a coastal bank. So I think the impact to the environment and to the coastal bank is a concern.
Well, I understand that concern, but the reality is that it's an extremely stable coastal bank. And one of the things that we're doing, we're addressing that stability by doing significant planting of native plants down the bank to make sure that it remains stable. Also, at the request of the Conservation Commission, we've reduced the amount of lawn area so that the plant mitigation comes in closer. And Teresa's online with us, right, Teresa?
Yeah.
So perhaps,
I saw that. It's a wonderful plan. I did watch that hearing. So I know what Teresa's done, and I think it's terrific. It looks great. I don't agree with you that the bank, not this property, but in general, that span of bank, I don't agree that it's stable. I mean.
well, I know, but the only bank that we're concerned about in this case is this bank. And it is stable.
Well, you said yourself earlier that there's this continuation. When you build a revetment, there's this impact down the road, down the line. It's not just isolated to that property. Anyway, I'm beyond my questions, but this is now getting into deliberation. But
Okay.
my questions were really about the reconciling some of the numbers, because the numbers help me get an indication of the size. Okay.
Lee?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say that this is a very good example of where the 3D image was very helpful.
Thank you.
Randy?
I don't have any questions.
Let's see, Randy, if you'll move to go into
Oh, yes.
deliberations, please.
Did you already ask it?
No, I haven't done anything. No, did I do I can't.
You passed on
I
questions.
used my question.
Oh,
did.
right, okay, so I move to close the hearing and move to deliberation?
Yep, that's right.
And Dave Veach seconds.
All right, need a vote? Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
I vote yes.
Yes,
Veach votes yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. All right. Deliberations. Phew. Randy?
well, you can't say it better than Ginny said it, honestly.
Can you get closer to the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. I wouldn't be able to say it better than Virginia Fenwick just said it. I'm not a numbers person, but I do look at them, and they do matter. But sometimes I think those 3Ds could, cut both ways, because they show how massive the property is going to look compared to how it is now as well. So that's not necessarily a good thing. I guess what strikes me is that it's already over the building coverage as it is, and now you want to go more. And so I'm troubled by that. And I'm also troubled by the environmental impact that all that, I guess we don't have purview over all the patio. Is that right? We don't? You just tell us,
No,
tell me.
but the patios are almost identical in size to the existing patios.
That doesn't make it right, because it's an opportunity to improve. I mean, people buy houses in Chatham on the coastal bank because of the beauty, and then they just want to trample it, or don't take an opportunity to improve it, and that baffles me personally. But in any event, I think I would just rest my point on the fact that it's already over the allowable coverage, and now you want to even go more. So
We're doing thousands of dollars worth of plantings to improve the situation. So I think you can't just look at these numbers and say, we are improving the situation, and that's why the Conservation Commission is willing to issue an order of conditions that approves the building.
they did not like this plan. And even your hired, I don't know what you call it, the guy who, the landscape architect. I thought he was going to get fired, actually, when I listened to it. I really did. I'm surprised he's still on. I mean, because he was like loath to even recommend the stuff that he recommended. So let's just face it, that's exactly what happened. He was troubled by it, and he's like, of course I could make it smaller, but my client doesn't want to. So again, we do have purview over the environmental concerns, and that's the neighborhood.
That's
And
correct.
like I said, you want to put a massive house on already not that big of an area. And so I'm troubled by that. I'll leave it at that.
Can I say
Dave
something?
Veach.
Well, I remember when that house was first built there, and I kind of went, oh, geez, really? It's right next to the Gray Ghost there, and leading with the garage and all, and I just never found it to be a particular enhancement to the location. I'm not unhappy to see a proposed replacement for that house, and I do think, Karen, I think you've done a really good job with it. This is a case where I certainly a gambrel fits the neighborhood. I mean, you drive down that stretch of Shore Road, and there's very few houses that aren't gambrel or have some sort of gambrel reference, or even some of the CBI buildings that kind of dressing up a box as a gambrel. It's kind of endemic to the whole stretch. And if you look at the drone video they showed us, it shows up that way too. The other thing, the way it shows up is, well, gee, my house is the one with the pool and a lot of glass on the water side. Well, you try to pick that one out of, no, I mean, not my house. I'm not talking about my house. I'm talking about someone in that stretch of road going, oh, that's my house. You wouldn't be able to, you could describe every property along there in that same way, including the ones there. This is replacing that and doing a better job of having a pool and having the I'm kind of looking at it maybe from the argument that Bill's making about this scale sighting and mass and neighborhood visual character. And I think that what's there is an improvement. And yes, it is somewhat larger than what's there, but in relation to some of the neighboring properties, it's not, doesn't stand out in that regard. So I don't see it as substantially more detrimental to neighborhood. I actually see it as an improvement over what's there, and I will support it.
Janie?
Well, I don't disagree with anything you said, Mr. Veach. It's a terrific proposal, except I think it's too large. I'm struggling with criteria 3 and 4. I totally agree with 5 and everything else. I think that the extent of the increases in nonconformities, they are small, but in totality, just if it could come in a little bit more, because the most important one today is number 4. Suitability of the site, impact on natural environment. I am uncomfortable, just like our Conservation Commission was. And I think it's important that we listen to them. They were uncomfortable with the amount of hardscape structure in the 0 to 50. This bank is very tall, and again, this is the blessing and the curse, if you will, of that property. It's beautiful shore road, and that is what we love about it. And the applicant, the owner, that beautiful vista, but it comes with some peril and some responsibility to protect that bank. And I don't think putting all this hardscape and structure there, when our Conservation Commission said that it was, they wanted to see, they would like to see nothing in the 0 to 50.
No, I understand that, but the problem is that the hardscape is not a threat to the coastal bank. And that's why it's, their job is to protect their numbers. And so, anything there is something that they push against, which is understandable, and we deal with them. That's why we made some changes to the hardscape at their request. We reduced the size of it.
Yeah.
We reduced the number of steps that they didn't like. And so, but the hardscape is not a threat to the coastal bank. Buildings are a threat to the coastal bank. That's why the building is back where it is. And again, I appreciate the concern. It's just, this is an extremely stable bank, very heavily vegetated. And when we're through with it, the protection that the vegetation provides is going to be significantly greater than it is today. So again, I appreciate the concern. I'm just saying that hardscape, if you said, well, if you reduce the hardscape by 50%, okay. But that's not going to change anything relative to the coastal bank.
I don't really know that much about conservation, but I know the Conservation Commission said they don't like structure in the 0 to 50. That, I used hardscape, but structure, I'll replace it with structure.
And that's correct. And that wouldn't matter if it's at a coastal bank or, there's.
That's true, but this
pool.
is a really important coastal bank.
I know,
one
but
that has.
it has nothing to do with the coastal bank. It has to do with their numbers, 0 to 50.
It has to do with being, trying to protect our natural environment.
Well, that's true.
Okay, well, that's criteria number 4. That's why I said I was
I know, but so
struggling with it.
it's either.
Let me, thank you. I agree, number 4 is.
This is Dave Clark.
Oh, sorry, David Clark Engineering. Number 4 is very important, but as Bill stated earlier, you just can't look at the numbers. You also have to look at the quality of the buffer zone. And that's where we went back and forth with conservation. At the end of the day, this project will better protect the bank than what's there now. With Blue Flax's mitigation plan and the drainage structures that are proposed, this project will have no impact on the bank and will actually improve the bank's ability to protect other properties in the neighborhood from coastal storm events. So it's not just a numbers game as being within the 50, it's what's in the 50 now versus what's going to be in the 50 after the project's done. Yes, there's going to be a small increase in hardscape in the 0 to 50, but there is a tremendous increase in native vegetation that's proposed that will dramatically offset and actually improve the area's ability to provide the protections that the bylaw seeks, not only the zoning bylaw and criteria for, but also the Conservation Commission's rules and regulations. Again, we're proposing drainage where there's no drainage now. That takes away any storm water runoff going down the bank. The existing house has been there 35 years. There's no indication that there's been any impacts from the house to the bank. From the house itself, obviously the landscaping that was done over the years is almost a lawn at one time all the way to the top of the coastal bank. That's retreated somewhat by the fence that's there now, but that fence is coming out. All that area is getting replanted, so we're reestablishing a wildlife corridor, and Teresa can speak to this if you want to hear more about it. But at the end of the day, like I said, this project results in an improvement to that buffer zone, to the bank. And that's why we feel we will be getting an order of conditions from Conservation because of the mitigation that's proposed, even though there's a small increase in the 0 to 50.
Thank you, David.
Lee?
There's a lot of points that I agree with. I think that the house is very attractive. It's great design. I think the 3D was beneficial to see the roof, to see that although it is a big house, it's not as, the mass didn't come through to me on the 3D the way it does on the site plans. I really appreciate the explanation regarding the coastal bank and how the new plantings will hopefully help it, make it more stable. In terms of the neighborhood, Shore Road, it's not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood or the visual character. Although I would like to see it a little bit smaller, I would still be voting in favor.
Well, when I look at this in relation to the lot it's on, and you've been comparing it to all the other houses on Shore Road and so on and so forth, it doesn't have the space that the houses I think of as being Shore Road has. And I think one of the problems is the change of the garage to the left side. Now, I like the whole idea that it's not open to the street, but it is closer to the road. And somehow that, in my mind, as Randy pointed out, we're already over the limit. And this pushes it even further, and I understand it's not the garage, it's the overhangs that Karen pointed out. But I just have a problem with that can't it be smaller? And secondly, I wish somebody would tell me the purpose of the lighted cupola. Just a question.
David, we can get rid of the cupola, but you're forgetting the fact that the lot was created under a different zoning bylaw.
I know.
And there were 3 houses in a row. When that property was subdivided, they were all built at the same time. They all have the same setbacks. So this is no different than the 2 houses to the north. And if you go south, those houses are all R40 houses. They all had 35 to 25-foot setbacks. So yes, they are going to look different, but I think you have to give the design credit for utilizing the existing footprint.
Yes, but again, the building is closer to the street than it is now. And I just have a problem with just saying, oh, well, you know, you're already over 15%, so what's the problem, you know? Well, it is a problem. I think it's the
Dave, look.
massing of it.
Sarah, would you put up the site plan for a second? Okay, that's good. All right, so if you remember the video and the pictures that Karen showed you, there's a wing that sticks out towards the top of the bank. So that's gone. All we have now is a gentle bump out on the north side. So, you know, so that we have the garage, which admittedly is somewhat close because of the shape of the road. But in reality, this is less building closer to the top of the bank. And as I'm sure you have to agree, a very superior design.
It is, except for the garage being kind of stuck out there. That's not attractive. And it is closer to the road than the existing structure. So when I add those two things together, I don't see why this project can't be scaled back somewhat so that it's not exceeding the number that it already exceeds. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
I move to close no, wait a minute.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, what
No.
are we doing?
Well, the question is, I don't know where Mr. Riley wants us to go. I'll give him an opportunity to discuss this with the client. Yeah, I think so. I don't think it has to be withdrawn. I think, you know, for my concerns, it's a simple assignment thing.
I think we should. So Karen?
Continuance okay with it, or you want something else?
That's true, but I think we have to make more changes than that.
What time are you in the office?
David.
Well, I won't be there. Miley's gonna come in today at 8 o'clock? I saw him in the car. Because I don't agree with what Tom's indentation.
So,
Yes, Mr. Riley? Yes, Mr. Riley?
well, all right, so the existing garage is 30.6 feet. So if we are a touch further away from the road than the existing garage, do you think that would be something that you could live with, Mr. Chairman?
You know, I can't answer a question like that. Is
Sure you
Is
can.
it gonna be better?
Sure you can. Yeah, it would be better.
I gotta see it.
Okay. All right, so we'd like to continue for a modest redesign.
Okay, we have some lovely dates available in January. What would you like?
We'd like something in December.
Karen, how long will you need?
There are some quick things that I can do to this to bring the numbers down. So,
December 7th is available, if that
yeah,
works?
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah,
Be careful
perfect.
what you wish for.
That's what I said to that guy who left. Good luck with December 7th. But anyway,
And I'll just need the plans
yeah.
in
We
advance.
just need the site plan redone. Do we have to go back to conservation before
So-
that?
No, because
I
most of the
move
stuff's gonna be
to
done.
continue the case until December 7th.
Dave Veach seconds.
We need a vote on that. Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Lee?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
Yes, unanimous.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
And thanks again for that. I love the 3D stuff. Really good.
And I move to adjourn?
Dave Veach seconds.
All right, needs a vote of everybody. Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Lee?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. Sarah votes yes. And don't forget our next meeting, what time does it start?
Great.
All right.
And then 2:30 is the one after that.
Yes. And that's
We're adjourned at 7:20.